Hello, everyone. Welcome to my stream. My name is Jules. As always, when you join me here on my channel, you are one of my treasures. Um, Welcome to what is a special live stream. I will have my friend Joe on here. Um, just he just texted me. He is running a few moments behind, but that's okay. Um, he will be here. Um, if not, we'll just continue the stream on our, for now. Um, so, like I said, my name is Jules. All of you that joined here are my treasures. Please do hit a like and subscribe, and do join into the live stream. Today we do have a topic. Joe's pretty good expert about, um, and I will have him, kind of introduce himself and uh, and you know start the conversation on that topic uh, when he does arrive. But for now, I do want to say that you are in Area 5T1, where we do discuss the five T's. We talk about transition, triathlon, trends, teaching, and trucks. Within the uh, teaching and tips category, we do have like four other subcategories, I would say. Um, those being urban myths, kind of, and also we talk about some preparedness, um, and we also talk. Uh, I do some recipes from time to time, and other times I will talk about high demand religions, organizations, and cults, focusing on the Mormon Church. Hey, cute kitty kitty, we are just waiting for my friend Joe to come on. He had a little uh, thing to deal with. He'll be on here in about 10, 15 minutes. So um, he should be coming soon. And then I'll split the screen, and we've got a pretty good uh, topic to talk about. He does have pretty good info on it, so um, I want to make sure that he gives. I also want to make sure we give him a chance to explain who he is. We're going to kind of get the who, what, when, where, why, and how um, with Joe. So please, as you're coming on here, please do hit a like and subscribe to the channel. Um, Everyone is welcome in here. Just keep comments respectful. Uh, right now, we can just run as we usually do. Um, just run our live stream. Today's been just for me. It's just been packing and getting ready for the California move. Um, so it's just been um, lots of packing. Uh, Welcome everyone. Welcome to the stream. You're on with Jules. Please do hit a like and subscribe to the channel. Um, we have been doing fantastic lately. Also consider dropping any supers. Uh, you know, 30% of what we get in supers does go to charity. Right now, it is also going to help if you throw in whatever you throw in super chat, as far as per dollar, you get an entry for the uh, for the Molly bag that I am doing a giveaway on. So uh, and that's just going to cover the overhead of shipping it. Hey Gage, thank you. Yeah, I actually have one. I have a P226. We're just waiting on my friend Joe. He had a little emergency, but he said he'd be on here around 8:15. So it should be about 5 minutes. I'm sure that some people would beg to differ, especially with the problems some of their pistols had lately, that the Air Force was using. But I have a P226, so I don't have to worry. But tonight, I didn't put the full name on the live stream on about the person we are talking about, but as you guys saw, it is Ted B, and the B does not stand for a bear. My friend that is coming on here is pretty well an expert on this person. He was in the Liver, so this would have been a great topic to put on the other. Oh, thank you. Keeping on. Yeah, today it's probably the algorithm is not picking me up as the same as usual. As you can see, today's live stream is horizontally as opposed to the vertical. So what I'm doing today is I'm on a different app, and that app it is where I can have another person on here with me. Now we're just waiting for my friend that's supposed to be on the live stream with me. He had a little quick emergency, so he's handling that. And for now we can do our usual type of stream. Just kind of chat. Um, and it'll be what the good thing is when we do use StreamYard. It's usually when people do this, it's usually people that you're subscribed with, or to people that are subscribed to you are more the ones that come in. We're not going to get the big old onslaught of hate that we do get. So, that'll be the good thing. So, that's always a great thing to do. You can always also play some music. My friend that'll be on here today is the one who did use the AI to create the songs that you guys that I play on the streams sometimes, and I'm sure that he wouldn't mind, if we played some of it. So I don't know if many of you saw the post that I placed. He did create a slide, kind of what who we're talking about today. It is Ted B. Many of you probably know who we mean, but I want my friend Joe to tell you more about himself at the very beginning and kind of what his first channel started out, and then we'll go from there. Let him tell this what he has studied on this case, because it's actually been something he has lots of knowledge about. So that's why I was bringing him on. I know we had, we've done the Heat and Jules channel, and I was hoping to bring him on that channel, but right now that channel's dormant because both of us are moving. I'm moving to California, and she's moving to Vegas. So I finally got uh, my final paperwork for my transfer. So and it's been accepted. Hey, Yadira, we're just waiting for Joe. Hello, Mike L. Welcome to the stream. Remember, please do hit that like, and you're already subscribed. Um, like I said, we're just Joe had a little quick family emergency, so he's just dealing with that. So welcome everyone. Welcome to the stream. We can, chat about anything like we usually do on our chats like that. Yeah, I'm having a friend of mine come on the stream, and he will be talking about Ted B, if you guys know who that is. So he knows a lot about the case. Actually, he actually was. Joe and I are both post-Mormon, and Ted did actually get it baptized into the church. Was about a member for about a year until he was excommunicated for the unalivings. That is one thing I did look up. So we're gonna pull up a little bit of AI here. Right before this, I was watching the Charger Kansas City game on YouTube. Yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting. He knows, he has lots of knowledge in what we're going to be talking about. MB, welcome. How you doing, girl? Yeah, I'm just waiting for Joe to come. He's got a little something he's dealing with, but we're just waiting for him to come on stage. I'm just waiting for him to come here backstage, and then we'll go on with the show. He obviously, MB, you've seen a lot of his material, so looks like he's coming on. So you guys will say welcome to Joe, you guys.
Hey, you hear me okay?
Joe.
Yes, can you hear me?
Hold on one moment. I think I got my speakers on mute.
Oh.
Oh, there we go.
Check.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing great.
I had a family emergency, but I got that all settled, I think. So we should be good.
Cool. Okay.
We get to play my favorite game. How much has Joe forgotten about Ted Bundy?
So, guys, I do my treasures, as I call them. I do want you guys to welcome Exmo Joe, guys and gals. Uh, Joe is actually a friend. We met here on YouTube, of all things. He came onto one of my live streams as I was to some talking about my atheism, and Joe found me that way and jumped into the live stream.
This is kind of coming home for us in a way, isn't it?
Yeah. So later on, Joe interviewed me, and then vice versa, and I did do something on his channel too. So Joe, why don't you tell them a little bit about your background of yourself and your channel?
Cool. Hellfire Agency started out as a true crime channel related to Mormonism. I'm an ex-Mormon. Then it became, at first, I was a TikToker. I was doing pretty well, kind of growing an audience on TikTok, talking about Tim Ballard and Sound of Freedom back when Sound of Freedom came out. And and I took off so well, and so many people. Hey guys, I see some comments of people who know me. So many people started to get interested in my talking about Tim Ballard and the crime and the suspicious behavior there. I decided to branch out. I tried this conspiracy about a college called Hillsdale College. It's a college based out of Michigan that has a very mysterious sex scandal / possible murder scandal
Is that the one with the cafe?
With the what?
With I heard one with about. Is it one with a restaurant also, or no?
No. The restaurant is Ted Bundy. Yeah.
Okay.
No. This is the story of George Roche the Third, King George, and his daughter-in-law that he wrote books with. He was a very prominent fundraiser and mucky muck in the conservative world between the 80s and 90s. And come to find out at the end of the saga, well, end-ish to the saga, that he'd been sleeping with his son, George IV's wife for some 20 years. And and then the day that she finally confronted the whole family about the scandal, she that afternoon ended up dead in a stone gazebo in a picturesque arboretum there at Hillsdale College's campus. And by the time the police got there, they discovered that the murder weapon was in a bush several feet away, outside this stone gazebo, and the actual they had ruled it a suicide, but the actual gazebo had been scrubbed down with cleaners by the maintenance staff. And it's like, this is a crime scene potentially. And her husband's like, no, she's had a rough day. And she had a rough day. It's like, and so she took a gun and offed herself. And so, anyways, the story it starts to deepen as you get into the details and realize this woman and her husband and her father-in-law had a very twisted story. So, anyways, so I took off with that. Decided I need something a little more engaging. So I decided to delve into a topic that I've been researching on my own long before I was into true crime, which was Ted Bundy. And I mean, we can go into that as long as you want. But effectively, that was the start. When people started leaving comments saying, you need a long form format, I could listen to more and more of this story for forever. And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to take all this, combine it into a podcast, and just for fun, just to make it atheism themed, ex-Mormon, ex-evangelical, ex-believer themed. I decided, you know what, we'll call it the Hellfire Club. But that was taken. I was like, no, what, we'll call it the Hellfire Agency because it's true crime. And by the time I started the Church of Korihor, which is a spiritual community for godless people, I decided, you know what, we're going to merge these two things because I can't run two things. So now Hellfire Agency is a mission of the Church of Korihor that encourages people to engage in critical thinking, which is one of the values of our church. So that's the TLDR of how Hellfire Agency became what it is.
You guys also feel free to ask any questions in the comments there. Yadira, you can always help point them out. Um, um, so, um, so Joe, we had said that we were going to talk about Ted Bundy. I think a lot of my, I have started another channel with someone else. I think we talked about the.
Yeah.
I was talking. We did talk about some crimes here in New Mexico.
Yeah.
So I think my viewers got really engaged in that. A lot of them have subscribed over onto the other channel, and I was trying to get the person that I have the other channel with, engaged and brings people on, and and I said, oh, I've got good people. I said I've got someone that's researched Ted Bundy, and I think that engaged my subscribers a lot. So
cool.
They got interested, and so that's why I said, I should bring Joe on here because he knows a lot about this case, and so tell us about Ted Bundy.
Okay. My gosh. About Ted Bundy. Should I tell you the story of how I became engaged in the story?
Yeah.
Okay. And we'll get to some point. We'll talk about Ted Bundy's garbage bag, which is taped. What remains of it is taped to this letter.
Yeah.
But effectively, so basically, started out with Mormonism, as most things in my life do. Basically, when I was a kid, I was obsessed with a guy named Cleon Skousen. If you've never been Mormon, but you've been a libertarian or a right-wing John Birch Society person in the past, you may have heard of him. He became famous in the broader world as the former FBI agent who wrote The 5,000-Year Leap, which is basically, anyways. So but in Mormonism, he was the guy who wrote all the books that the brethren were afraid to write, and so he wrote the first 1,000 years and the world's history, starting with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and the second 1,000 years and getting into the patriarchs and all this. And I just ate all that up during the couple of years there, 13 and 14. I had my come to Jesus moment where I'm like, I'm going to get my life together. I'm 14 years old. I can't just keep going on this life of sin and debauchery. I got to get my act together, which was mostly, swear less, punch fewer holes in walls, and jerk off less. And or not at all, ideally, not at all. So I was trying my best at that. And then I became super, religious. I know that's a factor of my autism. But when I go into something like this, I go in all the way. I go hard. And so I got really into this, this ultra right wing stuff. And I had a chance to come here to Salt Lake and hear Cleon Skousen speak. And I came up here, and when I was here, he regaled us with the story about how he was either chief of police in Salt Lake City, if I remember right, or he was sheriff. I think he was chief of police in Salt Lake. But that he wanted to show us something, so he threw it to a video. Of course, the video had nothing to do with his being chief of police in Salt Lake. It had nothing to do with his law enforcement that I could tell whatsoever, unless he worked the Bundy cases as an FBI agent. I don't think he's ever copped to that. But effectively, and it certainly doesn't mention the fact that he got his ass fired for being a crappy police chief. And so, but he showed us the last interview of Ted Bundy that he did with the now recently deceased ding dong James C. Dobson of Focus on the Family fame, televangelist, ultra right-wing Baptist, and who, of course, is deeply connected in Mormon roots as well, because, well, he's a known commodity among top Mormons, including, I believe, it was close and personal with Skousen. I can't say that for certainty, but that's my understanding. And so, and of course, everybody knows. And the Mormon Church at that time had started to dabble in this World Conference of Families, which is now a listed hate crime with the hate group with the Southern Poverty Law Center, and also with Focus on the Family. And there's a lot of buddy. There's a lot of going together there between the Mormon Church and some Baptists who surely think these Mormons aren't real Christians. Anyways, so he showed us this final interview, and if you don't know, the last interview Ted Bundy did, literally hours before he got the electric chair, was that he basically made a last-ditch effort to plead to James C. Dobson on film that he had found God and that Jesus had come into his heart and he had confessed all of his sins. He knew he was a vile murderer and that he'd done these awful things, but that he knew he was saved in the kingdom of God. And so he didn't expect anybody to believe him, but he certainly expected good Christian people to reconsider and appeal to the governor of Florida to give him another stay of execution, which was not coming. Just spoiler alert, he got the chair in the morning. And he was surely hoping that James C. Dobson, who was very influential in Republican politics at the time, could get the Republican governor of Florida to give him another stay. And James C. Dobson, by the way, had no intention of doing any such thing. And frankly, it was kind of stupid that he thought that he thought any other way. But Ted Bundy, who really loved to consider himself quite clever, he wasn't actually. He made a lot of mistakes. He benefited from the fact that law enforcement were very disjointed, and he got exposed to that as a very young man, which is part of the interesting thing as we develop. But in any event, the point is that in this interview, he had to tell James C. Dobson all the things James C. Dobson wants to hear, which was, I was a good Christian boy, went to church every Sunday, said my prayers, and then I started digging through the neighbors' trash cans, as boys do, and found dirty magazines. And that just set my mind off on a roll, combined with violent, gory detective novels I was reading, made everything you see here. That's what made Ted Bundy. And then he turned it around to say, but the things that I have to warn your viewers, Reverend, that the things I saw and the things that led me to do what I have done to these women, they are nothing compared to the filth that these folks at home, these people at home are pumping into their televisions, into their homes for their children to stumble upon. And you are making Ted Bundys all over America right now. And James C. Dobson gets to clutch all the pearls. I can't believe it. Even he's just singing his song. He wants a stay of execution. He wants to live longer for whatever reason. He's in prison for the rest of his life. But yeah, I mean, that's when, I mean, after that, there was not a dry eye in the room as we realized that we were all the next Ted Bundy, because Cleon Skousen gets up there and he starts preaching about if you are in line with your mom checking out groceries in the grocery store and you see a scantily clad woman on People Weekly magazine, on the cover of People Weekly or Cosmopolitan, you've been exposed to softcore porn, and that's everything that made Ted Bundy. And it's everything that will make you into the next Ted Bundy. We were mortified. We were mortified, every single person in that room. And I decided I eventually wound up going home to Arizona, confessing to my bishop that I wasn't the best boy when it came to my little factory maintenance. And that's another story. I don't know if anybody wants to go into that. But and I mean, my repentance process was really strict and really, really brutal. It was humiliating, frankly. And just it's like everything that eventually I started the Church of Korihor for, to say, we in a spiritual community, nobody should be locked in a room with a 14-year-old boy and ask him exactly what do you do when you masturbate. That should never be a thing that happens to anybody. And Church of Korihor doesn't and won't ever. But of course, that's not the reason. But that I started it. But it's definitely a part of it. And so from that point on, though, I remember being vaguely interested in Ted Bundy pretty much my whole life, as I came to dissect. There's just no way. There's no way. How many people read gory detective novels or look at Playboy or Hustler and never go out and murder some 30 or more women in addition to the other things he did to these women, which were horrifying if you dive into them. And it turns out there's a lot of stories about Ted Bundy that are not true. There are a lot of victims we now know were not committed by him, but were falsely blamed on him. But he confessed to a few, and they seem very credible. But the biggest run of victims he had were while he was a law student here at the University of Utah, the future son-in-law of a prominent physician here in Utah, taking discussions with the Mormon missionaries who have been interviewed and whose interviews are in some of my episodes, talking about how, including one, his Larry Anderson, the senior companion who converted him, basically is basically on the record stating that he knows that Ted Bundy's in heaven because he believed in blood atonement, of all things, because he believes in blood atonement. And I'm like, wow. Or in other words, because he he got executed for his crimes, his what isn't covered under the blood of Christ is covered in his own blood. And so
I was going to say, Joe, why don't we explain to them what blood atonement is?
Okay. Yeah, blood atonement is a doctrine. It wasn't, it was as much a doctrine as anything else up until the Mormon Church started correlating its doctrine and in written format, right? But back in the day, doctrine of the Mormon Church, you had written word, and then you had the word of the prophets and apostles, which was just as good. And the doctrine of the prophets and apostles from Brigham Young on, and probably all the way back to Joseph Smith, but Brigham Young is the one who is really known, Joseph Smith's successor is the one who's really known for this doctrine, was that if there are some sins too heinous to ask Christ to bleed for and to put on the atonement of Christ. And so in order for you to be redeemed of said sins, you have to pay for it with your own life. And it was the rubric under which an organization sometimes referred to as the Danites were plausibly sent and dispatched to take out enemies of the church and people who were defectors from the church. And so that's the doctrine of blood atonement, which the Mormons deny was ever a true doctrine to begin with. But like I said, this guy's still Mormon. This guy who converted Ted Bundy, and he referred to it. He's like, no, the blood atonement is the reason why Bundy's saved. Is because he knew he'd done bad, he knew he'd done wrong, and he needed to pay the ultimate price for it, and he did that when he was executed. Okay, dude. It's an interesting conundrum. There's so many facts about Ted Bundy's missionaries. I mean, it blows my mind every time I think about all the little things I've learned about these guys. But yeah, the story though. You want to hear the story about the garbage bag?
Go for it. Yeah. How'd you get that?
So I talked to Kevin Ed Sullivan. I talked to Ed Sullivan. I talked to Kevin Sullivan. I talked to Ed Sullivan's ghost. No, Kevin Sullivan is the Bundy author. Ted Bundy author has probably written more Ted Bundy than any other person really to ever do it. And he's, as a matter of fact, I think he's got a book that he was researching. We released last time we talked about it. He's got a book he was researching with some new victims that are potentially plausibly linked to Bundy. I mean, they're not new victims, but they're victims we didn't know about before. And that opened up, by the way, because of the pickup. That's a whole story by itself. But he tells a story about how he was, when he got into Ted Bundy, he was a journalist and a preacher. He's living out in the Bible Belt. And a friend of his says, this Mormon guy's coming through town. And, he's a police officer. He's a former police officer and a detective. And he's doing trainings out here and doing this whole song and dance show. And his name is Jerry Thompson. Apparently, he identified himself because, Kevin Sullivan asked him, he said, so you're from Utah, huh? They met at like Howard Johnson's or something. And he's like, so you're from Utah. Are you a Mormon? And he's like, and he says, you know what he told me? I've never heard this phrase before. He said, I'm a Jack Mormon. And I laughed. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you ever heard that before? Jack Mormon? I'm like, yeah, that's a normal thing. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah, in Mormonism, that's a lot of Mormons actually are Jack Mormons. It means that you identify as a Mormon, you do all the practices, but you don't believe it. It's like being an Easter and Christmas Catholic or something. And he's like, oh, okay. Or maybe better to say it's closer to being like a lapsed Catholic. And so anyways, so I told, apparently Jerry Thompson, when he left the force, after he was basically the guy who got Ted Bundy behind bars, through some fairly sketchy means I'm going to just mention. But he went into the evidence locker when he left the force, and he picked up Ted Bundy's bag that had the ski mask, the handcuffs, the garbage bags, the nylon stockings, the crowbar. I mean, it had the murder weapon in this bag. Picked it up and walked out with it, basically. And this is evidence handling among law enforcement in the 1970s. For all we know, it's just bad now. But he basically walks off with this bag full of Bundy's murder kit, and he hung on to it the rest of his life, for the best I know. I think he eventually sold all of it. But at that point, he regaled them with so many stories about how about being on the hunt for Ted Bundy. So a lot of these war stories about hunting Ted Bundy are a lot of fun. A lot of them are tall tales. But at the end, they got to be so chummy after like a few hours together that Jerry Thompson reaches into this bag of old 1974 Glad trash bags, and he pulls one out to each of the people that he's talking to, the couple of guys he was talking there, and he gave one to each of them, gave them each one of Ted Bundy's garbage bags, and he says, and I've hung on to that thing, not sure what to do with it for years. I'm like, you didn't frame it or anything? He's like, nah. He's like, eventually I just started cutting out pieces of it and sending them to friends as little mementos, just people who are weirdos like me. And I was like, that's pretty cool, man. So he sent me a letter, and it's gotten dirty since I've had it, but that's it right there. That's a piece of Ted Bundy's murder kit right there. eBay keeping on such. I gotta find a psychic. I don't believe in mediums, but I think it'd make a great episode if I could use this to conjure up Ted
No,
or one of his victims.
call Ballard.
Yeah, you get what's her name? Why is her name? Janet Russin. You gotta get Janet Russin. Find me a
Yeah.
Mormon on the other side of the veil. They got questions here. I gotta ask Ted if he killed Laura Amy. I said the whole thing started. So like I said, here's what I'm gonna do. I live right down the road from American Fort Canyon, which is a place that's well known to be at the time. All the time I've been here was known to be the place where Ted Bundy with the placement of a mine shaft that's known as Ted Bundy's cave. And all these people from the area, all these kids from the local area, this is like a fun Halloween thing. They go up there on Halloween every Halloween, and they put graffiti all over it, dare each other to go into the cave and everything. And supposedly it was the place that everybody here knows. It's the place where Ted Bundy kept a girl alive and bound for some 2 to 4 weeks before she was discovered deceased. And one or two girls. That story is certainly bullshit. That's that's nowhere near true. But what is true is that on October 31st, 1974, Halloween night, there was a girl here, a Jack Mormon girl here in the area whose name was Laura Ann Amy. And I went around to all the sites, like the restaurant where she was rumored to have last been seen is a restaurant that was at the time a cafe. It was a local teen hangout. It was known as Mole Brown's to people here in town, but it's actually called the Naughty Pine Cafe. And I went over to the building. It's since been leased. Somebody's in there now. I forget what they do now. And I went to the park where, where she supposedly showed up while she was walking home. She showed up to a party, a church party, church Halloween party at this park over by the public library. And that's where the rumor goes that Ted Bundy pulled up in the famous Volkswagen, offered her a ride home. And she was found Thanksgiving Day, either Thanksgiving Day or the day after Thanksgiving, by two BYU hikers. That's 70s term for pot smokers, who were going up American Fort Canyon, which is kind of famous for being a place where you go when you smoke pot. And so she was found in that same canyon, but it was way further up the canyon. Well, it was like 3 miles up the canyon. And I actually did a little filming. I don't remember if I cut that footage in. I actually did a little filming at the turnout where she was found naked, and she had been strangled. Everything for the most part fit Ted Bundy's MO. Just strangled with nylon, fibers of nylon stocking were found in her neck. She had one ring on her finger, I believe, a jade ring. And there was evidence of that she had been violated. They had her hair samples. She was, one of the things that comes up in her medical examiner's report is how well preserved she is, and how the medical examiner believed that she was less than I think a week decomposed. And which the more I look into it, the more it just seems like that's just not possible. But so in any event, she disappears up American Fort Canyon the night of the 31st of October, shows up the day after Thanksgiving, deceased, and she's only been deceased for a week. And the math ain't mathin', right? And so this is where rumors came up that Ted Bundy took girls up to his place in the Avenues, again, another place I went up and filmed, and that they kept them in the cellar. Seems really strange when you see it, because it's like, how would nobody hear them? Why? I mean, surely they would have tried to escape. They would have tried to get somebody's attention, or that, because around the same time he also kidnapped and murdered and etc. A police officer's daughter from Sandy named Melissa Smith. And so it's like, the theory goes that these are the two girls that he either kept in a cave somewhere or a cellar somewhere. And nobody really knows for sure. I personally am of the opinion, after all the research I've done, that he murdered her that night on Halloween night. And I'm in agreement with one of my fellow researchers out here, as a guy. He's gonna hate me for forgetting his name. His channel on here on YouTube is Captain Borax. Captain Borax, like the cleaner. You can go check out his stuff. But he was hired as he's like this special needs teacher who lives in Las Vegas, who's just really good at getting people on the phone, talking to them, getting them to invite him into their homes, and just sitting there and talking to him. He's just a really personable guy. And Chris Mortensen is his name. And anyways, he and I are both of the same opinion. The news report from the night of of that Halloween, 1974, says that there was snow spitting up the American Fort Canyon. And our theory is that that Bundy realized that he was going to get caught. Somebody was bound to come around. He was probably drunk. When he was drunk, he got really sloppy. In fact, there's more than one instance where Bundy himself has admitted there are girls who got away. And there are women who have since emerged, including Rhonda Stapley. It's an interesting story, especially if you're interested in Mormonism. Who have come forward to say, I was one of those girls. Ted Bundy picked me up and he tried to kill me, or I got away before he could kill me. Of course, the famous one is Carol Durant. She's not a Mormon girl, as I believe, but she was the one who got away and was able to identify him in a lineup. She's the one who basically is the reason why he eventually got locked up the first time before he escaped. So it's a wild story, man. It is quite the ride to follow this whole Bundy trail. But the whole thing was, Bundy never admitted, even though people say otherwise. Bundy, while he admitted to some of the women, which he is a pathological liar, so who can trust? He vehemently denied a handful of them. Maybe because he was saving them for later, but in at least one case, for example, there's a victim named Nancy Baird. Doesn't fit Bundy's MO, always been blamed on Bundy, but she was a blonde. Bundy only killed brunettes. She was like a 20-something-year-old single mom. Bundy was passionately pursuing teenagers, between 14 and generally between 14 and 17. And that all fit, she didn't fit his MO at all. Now, they've actually managed to get the two witnesses, which are a man and his sister, these two siblings, who remembered the police interviewing them and taking transparencies, stacking them on top of each other, trying to basically create like a quick and dirty composite sketch of the perpetrator. And they said it wasn't one man, it was two men, which is another story. Another thing, one of the famous stories around Bundy from locals here is that he had an accomplice. But there were two men, and they looked almost identical. They looked like brothers. And it's like, wow. I mean, that, again, none of this fits Bundy. Bundy vehemently denied that when he saw Nancy Baird, he pointed at her and said, I had nothing to do with that. And then when he was asked, well, what about Laura Amy? He said, yeah, I don't remember that. I can't say it. So he never copped to it. The thing is that there's here in, do I have the book nearby? Yeah. So I got this book. I tracked down one of the few copies of this vanity print book. by the guy who was the sheriff of Utah in Utah County. Is this book right here from the Journal of Sheriff Mac Hawley, Utah County Sheriff's Department. This book is, you see how thick this book is, right? This is this man's journal. Utah County Sheriff's Department events, 1960 to 1985, BYU basketball, football, personal observations. And that's this man's, that's 25 years of this man's life. I wrote a book like 10 times this size about my 2 years in Peru. But anyways, as a missionary. But anyways, this book, he actually says in the passage here, he talks about the Bundy case, and he says that he doesn't believe that Bundy did it. And it's just so bizarre because everybody agrees that it was. Everybody agrees that it was. And here it is. Yeah. The murder of Laura Ann Amy. Ends with he says another grim murder investigation began with the nude body of Miss Amy, age 17, was found by hikers in American Fork Canyon, November 26, 1974. There's disagreement. It's either the day before, the day of, or the day after Thanksgiving. According to the medical examiner's report, a whole episode on that, Miss Amy had been, violated and probably died of multiple blows to the head and strangulation. Police officials compared notes concerning this and the unaliving of Melissa Smith of Midvale and the disappearance of Deborah Kent of Bountiful. Those eventually all are true. This was an extremely trying case with bickering and innuendos thrown about. That's important here. This is an unsolved case. Many officers have attributed it to Ted Bundy, the so-called serial killer who had been in this area. I'm not so certain. Whatever the case, it was a tremendous loss for family and friends, something which is not easily forgotten. And it just feels terribly unjust that Laura Amy's case should be, very obviously not paid sufficient, not given sufficient attention when Debbie Kent, what was she, 14, I think? Everybody was on fire about the disappearance of Debbie Kent because she was a good little, Mormon choir girl, and from a rich part of Utah, of Salt Lake County, and came from family, that was very passionate about her. Laura Amy's family was passionate about her too, but they were Jack Mormons. They, they drank, and they, her parents would, kick her out of the house, or she would run away from home. By the time they found her, the police were like, how long has she been missing? And her father called up the sheriff's office and says, I think you have my daughter. Says, I think it's that girl you claim to have found. And they're like, we had no missing persons report on her. We couldn't identify her. And they're like, how long has your daughter been missing? And he's like, been about a month. And they're like, you didn't think to file a missing persons report when your 17-year-old daughter's been missing for a month? He's like, she does this. She runs off. And that was just kind of the logic. That was just kind of the way it was in this county down here. But anyways, Laura was known to be a drinker. They would drink what they called jungle juice. They would take like whatever they could and, add yeast into it. Basically,
trash can.
Right. They were basically prison hooching and just kind of getting high and drunk, whatever they could. One of her friends, Marion Beveridge, said, Marion Beveridge, was the one who told my friend Chris. She's like, it was Laura who told me that you have to use an ice cream scoop to scoop out the center of a peyote button, or it'll make you sick. And so they were out here getting high, doing the dirty stuff. She had apparently a boyfriend. So in any event, the long run, the reason why Mac Hawley was so pissed about people saying this was a Ted Bundy case is that the accusation was that he blew it, Mac Hawley, that he didn't know what he was doing. And by the time Bundy went to trial, and they put together the first case of multiple states working together to put together a massive trial against a perpetrator. But they came to him for the evidence, to Matt Hawley's people in Utah County Sheriff's Office, and discovered it was gone. And I was like, "What are you doing?" There's a guy I've been trying to get an interview with. It's actually on the city council here up the road from me in Pleasant Grove. His name is Brent Bullock. He gave an interview to my friend Chris, and he told him, he's like, I went to them and I said, with the county, what do they call it? The county attorney at the time is like the main prosecutor for the county. And he's like, we went to Matt Hawley and we told him, we're going to charge you with mishandling evidence because this girl's murder is going to go unsolved. And it was wild. I mean, they basically, after all said and done, the insinuation is it's still very kind of hush. But the insinuation at the end is that when the Utah County Sheriff's Office moved offices between 1974 and 1975, they just took all their a bunch of their cold cases evidence, including Laura Amy, which had her hair. It had probably had her hair, the ring that was on her finger, a necklace maybe that she might have been wearing, the DNA of the semen that was found inside her. All of this was collected by the coroner, and this evidence was with Utah County Sheriff's Office. It all got thrown away, basically, is the conclusion. And because of that, in effect, Bundy always got away with it. Now, of course, he fried in the end for a 12-year-old girl that he murdered and violated in Florida. So, I mean, if that's the ultimate, and you make that cover everything that he did wrong, the problem for me is that he had an opportunity to come clean about Laura Amy, and he didn't want to, probably because he was hoping the conclusion is that he's probably hoping he'd get another stay. That if he acted fuzzy, he'd go, "Oh, I don't know, I'm kind of tired. Maybe you can come back next week," he tells them. And they're like, you might be dead next week. And he's like, no, I'm sure it'll be fine. Well, maybe you could call the governor. Maybe you call the governor and tell him, "Oh, we're not done with him." So in the end, it is an unsolved case, but almost certainly it was Bundy.
Now, Joe, did you didn't you say you recently found a case that was most likely one of his victims, and you were unsure?
So there was so there's the case of Nancy Baird, which I talked about a little bit. We did find out recently, thanks to some good policing, actually, shockingly, down in down by Zion National Park. What do you call it? Blah blah blah. That little town out there. Anyways, headed down your way, down towards New Mexico. There's a little town. Why is the name escaping me? Well, anyways, that one of these victims from 1973 that has always been blamed on Bundy for no other reason than that it was for no other reason than that they were just blaming all of the murders that were happening back then on Bundy. And it's like Bundy wasn't even in Utah in 1973, that anybody knows. He came down in 1974. And, he did come down to hunt with his future father-in-law. It's another case. This guy up and disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to him. Prominent physician, instructor at the medical school. After Bundy was arrested and after Bundy was convicted, this guy basically walks in, from what I understand, he basically walked out on his job and his life and just disappeared. And it was really weird. But apparently they used to go hunting together, Bundy and his future father-in-law, which, if you can imagine, if you know, you don't know. If you don't know, you don't know. But it's like being alone with Ted Bundy in a blind for who knows how long with guns. I was like, good Lord. But yeah, but nothing connected Bundy to this murder at all. And it was just always blamed on him. Turns out, the new chief of police down there was a guy who had worked in the rock quarry, is a security guard. He had been promoted to the head of security for is it Matson? I forget. It's for the big, no, not Matson, for the big rock quarry down there, and in southern Utah. And he had gotten a call one day saying, "We need a new police chief," and he's like, "Why would I go and become the police chief?" And they're like, "Because literally no one else will take it. It's a boring job, and you're always going to be fighting with the sheriff's office, and it's a shitty job." And he's like, "Okay, you're doing a great job selling it." And they're like, make it worth your time. He's like, "Pay me more than I'm getting paid at the rock quarry." And they're like, "Okay." And he's like, "All right, I'm the new chief of police, but here's the thing, I want training." So they sent him to a policing school to become a detective. And he carefully collected from this murder scene all the clothes that the woman who was murdered, raped and murdered, had, all the clothes that she was wearing, with carefully, with gloved hands, etc., packaged them up in sealed airtight containers, labeled them, recorded all of the facts of the scene, got all of the accounts of witnesses, took all of this, he meticulously cataloged everything related to the scene where this woman was found. And they even charged a local guy there, who was known to have been in the bar that night, that he was playing cards with the victim, and that his girlfriend, who gave him an alibi for that night, later, when she called the police about a domestic violence disturbance, told them, I know that my boyfriend murdered that woman, if anybody gives a shit. And then later she recanted on, it's like, "Oh, I was upset with him because he said nasty things to me." And it's like, oh, but this guy got away with it, lived his whole life just fine, passed away in town. And basically everybody local knew this guy had gotten away with this. And, but, because the courts didn't trust DNA evidence back then, nobody sent this woman's clothes to get DNA tested. And the man's DNA was on the inside of her pants that had been used to strangle her on the floor of the bar she owned with her husband. And eventually there's a cop down there right now, kudos where they're deserved. This new police officer found, like, diligently combed through all this old cold case material to find this miscatalogued box of evidence, took out this evidence, finally found it, and took it in, sent it for forensic evidence. And sure enough, man's DNA is on the buttons of the woman's shirt, and his DNA was on her pants. They know that because they did a cheek swab on the man to send it in for DNA testing. But because the court didn't order it, and the prosecutors didn't order it because they didn't think DNA was real, nothing happened. The guy got away with it, and it was just blamed on Ted Bundy, who wasn't even there. There's no record of him being over there. So it's curious.
We do have a question here in the chat by Gage. It says, "Police used bad information to clear crimes from back then. Does Joe have a number he believes is close to the truth?"
This is what I know, from what I understand. And it's from, you got to take it with a grain of salt, because Ted Bundy was a pathological liar. He lied to everybody all the time. That he would layer in a crumble of truth here and there that they could validate. Like Debbie Kent, he lied about that over and over again until he told them, "Okay, I did. I trashed her body down in Carbon County, I think it was. He trashed her body way down south, like took her apparently in the front part of his Volkswagen down to way down south and dumped her body in a canyon down there. That was his MO. Dump her in the canyon, dump her close one place. He even told so the Thanksgiving that he started taking the discussions with the missionaries, he invited them over. He was a good cook, Ted Bundy, believe it or not. And he invited them over for Thanksgiving dinner, basically hours before or after Laura Amy was found up in the canyon. And they're hanging out and in his apartment there in the avenues, and where he's the super, by the way. And they picked up a composite sketch in the Deseret News, and it's a composite sketch of the Ted killer that's been suspected of carrying out crimes, possibly in Washington and in Utah. And they picked up this horrible sketch, just doesn't look anything like Bundy at all. And they start holding it up to all the boys in the room, all these Mormon guys in the room who are his friends, his new friends, since he started taking the discussions. And it's like, oh, who is it? Who's the Ted killer? Is it you? Is it Alfonso? Is it Larry? Is it me? Is it Larry? And then they're like, what about Ted? Oh, maybe the Ted killer is Ted. And they like hold it up to Ted Bundy. And it's him, but the composite sketch doesn't look anything like him. And he's like, oh, no, you caught me. And he plays it off. And then afterwards, they say, after they were done screwing around, he said, I'll tell you how I would do it. And then he told them basically how he did it. And he was always doing little things like that, leaving little clues to almost like a dare. That was the real game for him. It's like, you'll never catch me. I'll tell you everything you want to know, and you'll never get me. And basically, he had volunteered with a task force with the governor's office while he was studying political science, I think, in Washington and state. And while he was there, he'd gotten a good look at the internal operations of pretty much every law enforcement agency in Washington state. And that's where he said he discovered it is a point of pride among law enforcement agencies to not cooperate with other law enforcement agencies, because every one of them wants the glory of solving the crime. And he said, so what I would do is I would take the girl's clothes and dump them in one county, then take the girl herself and dump her in a completely different county at a separate time. And then you'll never, and take the weapon and dump it in a separate county. And that's effectively what he did. That's basically what he did. And he gave it all away to his Mormon missionaries. But the story goes, take it with a grain of salt. There's a rumor that one of his attorneys in Colorado, in the Aurora, Colorado case, said he collapsed on the floor of his cell one day and started to weep, which is very out of character for Bundy. Bundy is notorious for how high he ranks on the scale for psychopathy, as a psychopath. And he says that Bundy collapsed on the floor and confessed to him there were hundreds of them. There were hundreds of them.
There's a good comment here that Huggy Bear has.
Oh. Hey, Huggy.
He says, officers that I worked with at Florida State Prison told me that Ted Bundy was a very smart guy and one of the best inmates ever. He was a model inmate, and he read books often.
That all is true. I wouldn't call him particularly smart, but he would give people that impression. And he was the thing is that he was very good at researching things that he knew you'd be interested in. Remember, I said that thing about James C. Dobson?
Mhm.
Like, basically, he had heard James C. Dobson's sermons and read his tracts from Focus on the Family and stuff, and just
Mhm.
recited back to him what James C. Dobson thought. And
Mhm.
people, you have somebody repeat back to you something you have said, you're going to think they're pretty smart. And that was basically how he did that. He would research things you were interested in. He would find out things that people were interested in, do a little research on that, then talk to them about it, and then they would feel like he was really smart.
So take notes like the missionaries do.
Right? Right. The guy he spent a lot of time. There's actually a really good movie about it now. Shoot, with what's his name? The guy from Lord of the Rings, Noah. Noah? What's his name? Elijah Wood. About the relationship, the weird pseudo bromance between Ted Bundy and the FBI profiler who was working with him at the end of his life, trying to figure out all these cases that were going on in the country right now, and trying to get behind the psychological profile of the killer, trying to figure out a way to do psychological profiling, which at the time the FBI didn't really think would work. They're like, this doesn't work. But at that time, there were so many of these serial killers and so many of these murders going on in America that they eventually said, we got to figure out something. We got to do something unconventional here to figure out how we can track these guys earlier, figure out their MO. So they decided to have this FBI profiler go and talk to Ted Bundy and get inside his head. And the whole thing is this cat and mouse game of Bundy and this researcher, this profiler, who is a psychologist. I think he's like a certified therapist.
Mhm.
And they start going back and forth, getting into each other's heads. And frequently the guy has to tell Ted, he's like, I don't know what you think you're doing. I don't know if you think somehow that you're buttering me up and that we're friends. To be clear, I'm not your friend. I'm not going to help you get away with a crime. I'm trying to catch other criminals. And as long as you're giving me useful information, this continues. And in the instant that I say that I think you're lying to me or you're not giving me good information, this is over. But it was a way for Bundy to get information on other perpetrators that were happening out there and get access to information about them, and so that he could give informed opinions about what the guy's doing, when he's thinking, oh, I have to do it again, or I have to this, or I have to that. And it's in those tapes and notes of this researcher that we really get an insight, at least into how Bundy wanted people to think that he thought, whether or not it's actually what he thought. So it's like all kinds of interesting little clues in this guy's
Yeah.
this case.
Now, Huggy's asking, was he a Mormon? From what I understand, he was for about a year. He took the
Not
missionary.
even.
Not even a year. Yeah.
He took the missionary discussions and then was excommunicated about a year after he started. But it was like basically from Halloween to Halloween, or even just a little before Halloween to Halloween. And he was baptized on August, I believe, 25th, 1975. They had waited a few months because he admitted that he couldn't quit drinking or smoking cigarettes. In truth, he was doing a lot harder stuff than that. But yeah.
And then we got saying psychopath characteristics, or perhaps a sociopath. Forget the distinction.
Right. Yeah. My understanding is that the profiling of psychopathy is the inability of the brain to process empathy for another person, or lack of normal empathy, or creatures, living creatures. Like one of the tokens that's very common to pin on psychopaths is that if they are really cruel to animals, for example. And Bundy, on the scale that they use, I forget what it's called. Basically, Bundy retroactively, so take that for what it's worth. He scored higher than pretty much any person on record. He's basically, by psychologist standards, the ideal example of a psychopath, just a person who has no regard for human life whatsoever. Which is curious that he had this lawyer that apparently who he confessed and broke down and cried in front of him and told him there were hundreds of victims. Who knows what he was playing at? Again, that's part of the problem. Is he had no idea. You never know what to believe with Bundy. He'll give you truths and he'll sandwich them in lies. And it was curious.
Someone just threw it in here, the hair psychopathy checklist.
I don't remember that. That doesn't sound right, but that could be. Let's see. Oh.
Yeah, I'm looking at that one right now. It's checklist. I wonder if it's like the bite model.
It's something kind of like that. Psychopathy to Bundy scale. I forget what it's called. Let's see. Yeah, that might be it. It might be a hair. I have no idea. Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, this is just Google, but characteristics of psychopathy, as seen in Bundy, are superficial charm, definitely. Lack of empathy, totally. Manipulative behavior, absolutely. Grandiose sense of self-worth, yes, definitely. Callousness, absolutely. Promiscuity and sexual seductiveness, totally. You know what's curious about that? I'm just gonna throw this out there. I read this list of characteristics. You know who immediately comes to mind for me, even before Ted Bundy? That is Joseph Smith all the way.
Yeah.
That's Joseph Smith. That's why I see it anyways. And I think Joseph Smith was actually a lot more bright than people give him credit for. But but he also was very good. Again, he was very good at reciting back to people what they wanted to hear and what they already thought. That's why we see Mormonism changing depending on who he was converting to Mormonism. It starts out a Presbyterian break off until a bunch of Baptists, Restoration Baptists, want to join. And then it's like, oh yeah, no, we're basically Baptists. And just like he just kept going. So yeah.
Let's see, Bugs Bunny cartoon, Evil Witch sharpens an axe, so it's sharp enough to to spot a hair or split a hair. Triple extended. I think. Yeah.
The other. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jules.
No. You're spot on with what you were saying about basically that scale. I thought.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the entire. You could say all. They even shape you that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The curious thing that I've come about, and that I've been somewhat making a name for myself in a very small circle that's not important, is that one of the things people don't know about Ted Bundy is that he didn't just have a Volkswagen Beetle. He also had a white 1960s era pickup truck, possibly a Ford F-150, maybe a Ranger. And a lot of crimes that are not associated with him are associated with a man who was driving a pickup truck. And part of the reason why they get discounted from him is that the police really only recorded, because they were only able to collect the Volkswagen, the Beetle, eventually. but they knew that he had a white pickup truck as well. That white pickup truck doesn't get mentioned hardly anywhere because it went missing while he was awaiting trial for the aggravated kidnapping of Carol Duranch. And that the reason why it went missing, we now know, because again, this is because of Chris Mortensen that I know about this. One of his missionaries, Larry Anderson's friend and roommate, John Green, admitted on camera while Bundy was in jail awaiting trial, he had gone to Bundy had approached him and said, "Hey, I feel bad that you guys," because their ward was gathering the bail money to bail him out of jail. They thought he was innocent, and so they were getting. It's like, I feel bad about them, bringing all this money, getting the members of the ward to put up money for my bail. I want you to go and sell my truck, my pickup. I'm not going to use it. And so John Green goes out there and sells it to somebody. I forget the details on it from there. I want to say that it was a guy who owned like a furniture store or something. I don't remember. But he sold it to somebody local, and it goes missing from there. Back then, they didn't have VIN numbers. They had a different kind of numbering system, but they had plates. Of course, they had the plate number on the police report, and that police report has been leaked since. We have it, and we know that pickup truck's license plate number at the very least, if not a few of the numbers associated with the parts. And basically, it's been a while now that I've been saying, we got to put together like a massive effort to go and find all of the 1960s era pickup trucks that anybody can trace back to being sold in Salt Lake City in late 1975. I think.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was looking up right now, and the Ranger back then was also a Ford F-100.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
You're already helping me.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, anything in the 70s that would be a small truck would be the Ford Courier.
But they did say that it was like an old truck by the time he owned it. That it was like an early pre-1965. So
okay. So yeah, it would still be an F-100. So
yeah. So I mean, it could be, I guess, that's been crushed and melted and repurposed into something between here and there. But it's my buddy. Yeah. I mean, Chris Mortensen and I talked about it. He said, here's the thing, Joe. He said, those old pickup trucks, those 1960s era pickup trucks, they're popular with collectors. Collectors fix them up and get them running. They run on and on and on with those things.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably a different color somewhere in America, maybe in a show somewhere, or it's been crushed and melted.
Keeping on comment right there.
Yeah. Keep on. Well, I'm not so much worried. I'm not suggesting your brother is Ted Bundy. I mean, Ted Bundy, we know, is dead. But the thing is that when they finally found the Volkswagen and got it, because it was he also sold the Volkswagen to a poor kid in Utah County here who was working at Winchester's. It's like a 24-hour donut place. They have them all over California. You probably Winchell's. Yeah, he worked at the Winchell's. Believe it or not, it was like the only Winchell's in Utah, I think. Kid worked up in Winchell's, just wanted to smoke pot, get laid with girls. He's a very interesting character. This guy. Now he gets really weirded out. I saw there's this video where Chris takes him up to the house in the avenues. They go into Bundy's apartment, look around, and they go down into the cellar and look around. And he had bought Bundy's Volkswagen while Bundy was out on bail, and had no idea who Bundy was. Obviously, he had no idea what it was about. He had to borrow the money for it. At the time, Bundy had already put up that Volkswagen to the bail bondsman as collateral. Basically, it's a loan. His bail is paid, and if he fails to show up, or if he disappears or doesn't pay it off, then the bail bondsman gets his car. Well, he goes out down to the DMV and gets a duplicate title for the car. He gives one to the bail bondsman as to hold to for the bail bond, which, by the way, was also being paid. We know money was sent to him by his mom and his stepdad sent him money to pay his bond, and the ward went out and took up a collection to raise money. How much money was collected? How much of it wound up in Bundy's pocket? We'll never know. But then he goes and he sells this car. He puts the car in the Deseret News, in the classifieds, the Deseret News, I think, in the classifieds, and he sells the car to this teenage kid. That kid has no idea. And that kid, it turns out, was a classmate of Melissa Smith, the daughter of the police chief in Sandy. So this poor kid, this 17-year-old kid, like, he has stories about picking up girls and taking them around town in his cool whip. And they came up in the in the Florida case, even a Florida case or the Colorado case? The Colorado case. Yeah, the Colorado case. And because one of the girls that he picked up in this car, she was like, "Your car is too boring. It's not exciting enough." And he's like, "Oh, really? You don't like my car?" And he's like, "Where's your car?" And so she to make her point, pulls out some nail polish and dabs of this hot pink nail polish. It was 1975, and puts a little dab of it on the dashboard. And that later comes up in the court case because Ted Bundy, who represented himself stupidly, he's a first-year law student who didn't go to class. And so, of course, he defends himself. And so he goes up there to this boy, 17 years old, who's a witness for the state. And he says, "Do you recognize this car?" And he's like, "Yeah, I recognize that." And he's like, what is it? And he's like, "That's the car you sold me, that the police came and confiscated from me, and I wasn't paid for it. And, and I had to take out a loan to buy it." And he says, "Really, that's strange, because this is a picture of a Volkswagen that I pulled out of like a listing in a newspaper or something like that." And he's like, "So you don't even know? You can't tell me you know me." But the story is, when he bought the car from Bundy, they went to Bundy's place because Bundy didn't have another car because they'd sold his pickup. Mm-hmm. And he's like, "Hey, do you think you can? I know you just sold you the car, but do you think you could come back up to my place and drop me off in the Avenues?" "Okay, I guess so." So he drives. So this kid buys Bundy's Volkswagen, drives him up to the Avenues in Salt Lake City, drops him off, and Bundy's like, "Hey, do you smoke weed?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure I do." And he's like, "Come on up." And so he and Bundy went up to Bundy's apartment there, where he may or may not have killed Melissa Smith, the girl that one of this guy's classmates. And and he gets and they sit there and they smoke pot in Bundy's apartment. And he said, "Now that's the guy that we had some of the most interesting information from." He told my friend Chris, he's like, "Here's the weird thing about Bundy. People mentioned that Bundy had nice pots that he would hang, that he was a cook who had very nice cookware, and he would hang it up on a rack." And he's like, his missionaries have given interviews where they talk about he was one of these people that hangs up their cookware to fancy. And he says, "What you don't hear them say, that I noticed sitting there smoking weed with him when I was 17 years old, is that the hooks that those pots were hanging on were old-fashioned meat hooks like butchers would use. And he just had like a bunch of them. He would take the handle, they have that
Mhm.
cross handle, right? And he had put up bicycle wheels on the wall, and then he would take those and he would wind those that handle into the spokes, and then he on these bicycle wheels, and that was his pot rack, which is like weird. And he's like, and I remember looking and going, those are meat hooks. That's disgusting. Everybody's so impressed with this guy, but that's gross. So he and Chris, they go down into the cellar that day. They came back. The second this guy, you could see it on his face. The second he's back on that property, the Pink Palace where Bundy lived, he is weirded out. He's like, oh, it's bringing it all back for him. And they got one of the people there who lived at the property against the rules to open up the cellar. And they go down in the cellar, and they start looking around, and he said to me, Chris Mortensen said to me, he said, Joe, everything, if you envision what Ted Bundy's cellar at that place was like, it's exactly like that. Everything you would have guessed, it's exactly like that. Dirt floor, concrete, dusty, or it's like a hardened, it's like a muddy covered, concrete floor, dirty. And then he's like, and all kinds of debris all over. And we're sitting there, we're going through, and my foot strikes something that scrapes, a metallic scraping sound. And I looked down, and I said, oh, I think I found one of Ted Bundy's meat hooks. And this guy, I wish I could remember his name. He like looks at him, he's like, don't joke about that, man. He reaches down, picks it up, and sure as the day is long, it's a meat hook. And it was in Ted Bundy's cellar. And he's like, and he shows it to him. And this guy, you could see the heebie-jeebies coming off of him. He's like, what the? He was freaked out. I mean, as you can imagine, as you would be. So it's weird. Oh, the pink nail polish. Thanks, keeping on. It was so it was this teenage boy. I'm trying to remember his name. He points it out to Bundy, and he's like, give me this. And he like looks at it and he says, no, I know that's the car you sold me, because you can see a spot of pink nail polish here on the dashboard, and my girlfriend put that on there to tell me, because she said that my car was too boring. And but anyways, the reason I tell you that story, that car, when they pulled up the floor mats on it, brown, long strands of brown hair all throughout it, just all throughout the floor, because Bundy killed brunettes, and he did nasty things with their hair and all that stuff. I mean, he was a freak show, man. But the thing is, again, back then they didn't trust DNA evidence, so they didn't DNA test any of that hair, and they use this system where they classify hair by its coarseness, its length, its putting it under a microscope, and they would isolate it. They would try to identify it in isolation to other kinds of brunette of hair. But it's all brunette hair. It's all brown hair. There's only so much variation you can get, and basically none of that hair convicted Bundy on anything. And they had tons of it. They had these dead girls' hair. And Laura Amy's was gone because it had been allegedly thrown away. And but the curious thing now is there are as many cases as are connected in Utah to this Volkswagen. There are stories about a man in a pickup truck. And it's plausible Bundy committed half of these crimes or some number of these crimes in that pickup truck, and somebody's out there kicking around with it. It could have DNA evidence in there right now that could actually convict Bundy posthumously. But I'm just like, man, let's find Ted Bundy's pickup. I'm all about it. We gotta get some DNA evidence. We gotta nail this guy.
We gotta find a VIN number.
Yeah, I'll send you what I have. So they didn't have a VIN number back then. It's my
They
understanding.
didn't.
I could be wrong about this. Yeah, they had like low. I don't remember. This is my research. It was like a localized thing. Maybe it was a VIN number. I have the police report here somewhere, but they have the license plate. We definitely have. So obviously, the license plate probably changed by now. But if somebody has like a pink slip or something that
Yeah.
has that old
Could you imagine having the title that says, what would it be, Theodore or Ted Bundy?
Theodore Bundy.
Theodore
I
Bundy.
think.
That would be something worth framing, and it'd be
Oh
like
man,
your
if somebody's got the title to Bundy's pickup and you haven't figured out that you should tell somebody about it, never mind the crime. Certainly not the money, man. That's worth money.
That'd be more. You'd want a better frame than your excommunication letter.
Yeah, right. Yeah, what we wouldn't give for Ted Bundy's excommunication letter. He was
Ooh.
excommunicated posthumously, or not posthumously, in absentia, at like the week he was convicted, and his branch president. It alternates between the story being his branch president or his stake president. Anyway, his ecclesiastical.
We got Jason in here. He's another one of the mods.
Hey, Jason, how's it going?
Yeah.
He was basically excommunicated in absentia while he was in prison, and apparently when they came in and told him, "Hey, you've been excommunicated," and he had not been a member of the Mormon Church a full month, and he's like, "What?" He's like, "What does that mean?" And they're like, You're out of the church. You're not Mormon." He's like, "Oh, okay. I understand. I understand how this looks, but I got this new lawyer. We're going to clear this whole thing up. It's all a big misunderstanding. But I get that you got to do what you got to do. When I get out of here, we're going to clear this all up." It's like, psycho. Yeah. But who has Ted Bundy's damn pickup? That's what I want to
know. Now, Joe, how long have you been doing work on this Bundy thing?
So I was actively, I was passively collecting information, stories about Bundy, 30 years now. Just, reading the books and getting, watching the movies, figuring out all the things they get wrong in the movies. Well, according to Anne, that's not how it went. And according to so-and-so, and so it's like, some of the most interesting stories, though, for me, were always about Bundy and Mormons. There's this famous picture of Bundy standing at a sink at a house party with a blonde woman, and they're drying off dishes. That wasn't a house party. It was a family home evening for the Sixth Ward. Yeah, he was, and they had an ice cream social. That woman, she gave really good interviews to Chris and to a couple of other people, where she was like, "Oh, I remember that picture." She's like, "They say that picture saved my life." She said, "Because I was standing there, and my now husband, Win, they call him. I forgot what that's short for. Win." She's like, or no, Owen. She's like, Owen, and she's like, Owen was there, and I was thinking, and Ted Bundy comes into the kitchen. He's like, "Maybe I can help you," and he's wearing this like turtleneck sweater. He's really dashing. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, maybe he likes me." And she's like, "I just thought, oh, he's so cute, and maybe he'll ask me out." And so she's like, and she says, she says, my job on the committee, for the activity committee for the ward, was to document with pictures. So I took my camera and I gave it to Owen, her future husband, who takes it, and she says, "Take a picture of me with Ted." And they're like washing dishes. So yeah, you see that picture, hear about this picture. Ted Bundy used to like volunteer to wash the dishes at family house parties. Now, that was a family home evening. He was converting to the church, and all these girls, according to this woman, gosh, don't know why I can't remember her name. According to this woman, she said every girl in that singles ward wanted Ted Bundy to ask her out.
Oh, wow. Imagine if they're all brunettes.
Yeah, she was a blonde, but she did say, which is one of the funny parts of it. It's like, yeah, she was totally safe, probably to begin with, but she said that as soon as he took that picture, she noticed a shift in him, a change in his personality. This is a thing that this may be just a feature of memory. You know how you remember something. If you remember somebody one way, and then you find out something dark and sinister about them, it wouldn't be
Carol
unusual.
Bartholomew?
Carol Bartholomew, that's her. Very good.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I've got the picture up right here.
there you go. And so, yeah, am I able to present? I could probably show you some things.
Yeah, go for it.
Let's see here. Oh my gosh. This is the folder I've not opened in a while. Let's try. Oh, Laura Amy.
Guys, we're here with my friend Exmo Joe from Hellfire Agency talking Ted Bundy. It's been something he has followed for a long time.
Let's try this. Ted Bundy tools. You should have it in your stage there. Okay, so this is a color photograph. Remember, I told you. Oh, that's the wrong one. Okay, so this is. Well, no, man, I think that is it. Yeah. Well, this is the one I'm thinking of. This is the one that's on display at the museum in Colorado, I believe. Let me find another one. I thought this was a different file. The pictures of the actual kit that you see out in the world are from that guy from Jerry Thompson, who had given to my friend Kevin Sullivan, who sent me this piece of Bundy's garbage bag. He had given him Ted Bundy's murder kit and said, "Hey, the wife doesn't like my war stories about."
So is this the actual kit from the evidence room?
Yeah, I think that it's either this is the kit or it's like a mock-up of that.
Oh,
it.
okay.
I thought that was the picture of the actual kit, but I'm trying to remember. Oh, this is the title for the Volkswagen.
Okay, let me remove this.
I don't know how interesting that is, though. Let me keep going here. The other interesting thing, do you remember? There's a Mormon Stories interview with Lynn Packer. Remember Lynn Packer?
Yeah, I know who Lynn Packer is. Yeah.
He gave a few interviews about Tim Ballard, of all people.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in one of those interviews. That's where I learned that he was one of his first assignments, one of his early assignments, was covering the Bundy trial for the aggravated kidnapping of Carol Duranch. And he's sitting there in the trial, listening to the case, and somebody taps him on the shoulder and turns around and finds two young men in business suits. We now know are Larry Anderson and John Green, the missionaries. And they say, "Aren't you that guy who covers the Bundy case for at the time it was KSL?" And he says, "Yeah." And they're like, "Why do you only report bad stuff about him like he's guilty?" And he's like, "Because the prosecution goes first. That's how this works." and they're like, "But he," and he's like, "Why?" And he's like, "Do you think he's innocent?" And they said, "We know he's innocent." And it's like, "You know that he's innocent. How do you know something like that?" And they said, "Because we're the ones who baptized him." and they basically, and but of course it was really precarious for him to cover that kind of stuff about Bundy or anything related to Bundy, frankly, on that subject, because he was a because KSL was owned by the Mormon Church. There's the same organization as Deseret News.
Yeah, one of their property holdings that makes them those $300 billion.
Oh, here we go. Here's something interesting. Okay, TED Composite 2. This is, I believe, the composite sketch I was telling you about that his missionaries brought to Thanksgiving dinner and passed around the room, holding it up to people's faces. Now, Bundy didn't wear a mustache back then, so if this person had seen a mustache, it would have been a fake one. But that composite sketch was made from a description of a teacher at Debbie Kent's school. Is that right? And she described that while she was at, they were putting on a play, and it was the same night that Carol Durant had gotten away from Bundy, and he was drunk, probably. Anyways, but he goes up north a little ways, and he goes to this play. Rumor goes that my understanding is that they later found the program to the play in his apartment. It's plausible. It's plausible that Jerry. This is a thing that we go back and forth on. Chris and I go over this back and forth on this. That it's very possible that Jerry Thompson was so desperate to catch Bundy that he actually planted evidence in his apartment. Nobody knows that for sure, though. But but like some things were just too convenient, too good. Anyway, so that's the picture that supposedly his missionaries were.
This looks like Barney Miller or like who else? And Welcome Back, Kotter. I'm dating myself here. Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look at the mustache. It was totally.
I have the picture of Carol and Ted. Does that? I mean, everybody's seen that one, right?
That sketch looks like something Napoleon Dynamite would show. Of all things, that does link into here because Napoleon Dynamite was the actor was Mormon himself, wasn't he?
I don't think the actor is. The director is.
The director
and
okay.
his wife. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the actor himself, though, I think is from the area. Let's see, what else is there? Okay, so this is an interesting one. Susan Curtis. So this is a picture. I'm going to load it up right now. This is one of the cases that we have kind of brought back up, Chris and a handful of other people and I. So this girl's name is Susan Curtis. And she may be another one that is blamed on Bundy and may not actually be. She went missing from BYU campus while she was on a bike trip down there with the other kids from her ward. She was from the area, basically about the same area where Debbie Kent went to school and lived, of course, her area up there in North Salt Lake area. And her parents had sent her to kind of an EFY camp, kind of like a sleepaway church camp at Brigham Young University's campus. This is one of the ones that got very hush-hush. Nobody wanted to talk about because they were trying to straighten her out. She had apparently been sleeping with the teacher of the boys' gym teacher at the local high school, and from the time she was, I believe, it was very young. It was like 14 or 15. And when she would fight with her parents, she would run off and she would go to this guy's house, and that's where they would send her siblings to go and collect her. And basically it was just known. It was just known this girl, when she is on the outs with her parents, she goes over to this house, and this guy, you know, this guy abuses her. And but everybody thought that she was just a slut, so they didn't. It was just kind of swept under the cover, just kind of swept under the rug. He eventually pleads out. He eventually gets charged with uh, improper sexual conduct with a minor or something like that.
Mhm.
And he pleads out, does like a couple months, I think a couple months in jail, and then he's released. And then that's that. He eventually winds up in Texas. Yeah. Eventually he ended up in Texas. But for a long time, he moved down here to Utah County, and he lived for something like 20 years here in Utah County. Pretty much everybody knew he was this guy who had assaulted this girl. Well, she went missing in 1975. She went missing from BYU's campus while she's on this church camp, the sleepaway camp at the Helaman Hall there in Utah, and in Provo and the BYU campus. They wore dresses. Apparently, somehow she was able to carry a dress on, or wear a dress, I guess, while she was biking all the way from Salt Lake down here, which is crazy. And that's a long bike ride. I don't care how fit you are. So she goes down here. She goes to a dance or to a formal, where she's supposed to be meeting boys, right? Good Mormon boys her own age, because they're trying to put her back on the straight and narrow. And she says that she has to go back to her room to who knows what. The conflicting reports, get some money, brush her teeth, something like this. So she goes back across the street to Helaman Hall, and she's never seen again. And this is, again, one of the people that Bundy, so when he saw her picture, he said he didn't know who she was. And so, and her, a man that she is known to have been abused by here in Salt Lake County, was, just lived free among society for decades now. Last I checked up on him, he's alive and living in Texas. He may be dead by now. He was extremely old. I mean, he did like a few weeks in jail, and he's marched on. And there are but the story, the interesting part of that, the reason why I should say so, he finally got caught because she got pregnant, and they wanted to make sure that she was actually pregnant. 1975, you got to get blood tests. You got to get, you got to go to. And so they don't want to do it here because they'll raise the questions. So he takes her down to Arizona, to Phoenix, where his sister lives, and she runs away. Her parents are freaked out because she runs away for a while, but this was for a while, like a long while. And eventually she winds up calling her parents and saying, "I need some money so I can get home." And they're like, "What the hell are you?" And she's like, "I'm in Arizona." And they're like, "What the hell are you doing in Arizona?" And she's like, and she winds up having to confess the whole thing to them. And so that's when they got the police involved and charged the man with assault, or not with assault, with improper sexual conduct with a minor, or something like that. And a minor offense. I mean, it's basically as minor as you can go with this kind of offense.
Right.
And he had just abandoned her. He's like, I didn't realize this was going to take so long, and I'm supposed to be teaching school on Monday. So he just he paid up a few nights at a hotel, stashed her there, and then just abandoned her. And until she got her parents to send her money to come home, to get like a bus fare home or something. It was the whole thing was so weird. And then she gets, just a few weeks later, she disappears from BYU campus and is never seen or heard from again. but because she's a brunette and she's a teenager, they said this is Bundy, and everybody just chalked it up to Bundy and left it. It's like, okay, doesn't fit Bundy's MO. Bundy himself never confessed to it, didn't have any idea who she was. Nothing about this girl's murder matches Bundy. If she was murdered at all. At this point, she could have fallen down a well. We don't, nobody knows. So it's curious. But what's so curious to me is how her assailant, her abuser, just lives free in society.
That's true.
And and nobody even says, I take that back. Okay, here's the one caveat. BYU police interviewed the guy when she went missing. They're like, there's a guy up there who's credibly accused of having they interview him and apparently asked him, and that guy lives here in Lehigh, the guy who I have the recording somewhere of him talking about this man, about interviewing this man. Anyways, they called him in, basically good cop bad copped him, saying, we know you've kidnapped this girl. Where is she? Is she alive? And he denies everything, of course, because of course he freaking would. And that officer, that BYU officer, he apparently, the story goes that he had some kind of in with the priest, a Catholic priest at Bundy's. Maybe Huggy Bear would know something about this, at his prison in Florida. And they were coordinating to get this priest, tried to convince this priest to get Bundy to confess to the murder of this girl, Curtis, Susan Curtis. And the story goes, from what I understand, is this Susan Curtis?
Hello, Rio.
What's that?
Oh, I was just saying hello to Rio.
Rio.
Yeah.
Hi, Rio. The story goes that Bundy did actually confess to her on his way to the chair, like on the footpath to go to the electric chair. But who's to say? Like I said, this guy who was using this poor child, and everybody knew it. He pleaded guilty to it. That guy, he may be living large now in Texas right now, living, as a free man. So
I wonder if the statute of limitations already passed.
Right. I think with especially when it has to do with a minor, the abuse. Yeah, there might not be any statute of limitations. I'm not sure about that. I wish I knew. See if I have some more of these pictures here. Bloodtoma. I had a couple of really good ones here. Okay, this is the place where, I mentioned to you Ted Bundy's cave. I didn't take this picture. By the time I got there, I was really disappointed. By the time I finally figured out where Ted Bundy's cave is, sorry, let me put it up there. Oh, wait, I can't do that. You have to put it up there, I guess. This had been blasted out, but this is what Ted Bundy's cave looked like. Again, not really Ted Bundy's cave, almost certainly. I don't buy that Bundy kept girls in this cave. If Bundy had kept Laura Amy and Melissa Smith in this cave, they'd have gotten out for sure. Or they'd have heard somebody. That cave it's on the other side of the river from where the road is in American Fort Canyon. That river is loud, but you get a girl out there to scream through a gag, somebody's going to hear her. I don't buy that Bundy could have sedated them or knocked them so hard unconscious they could just stash them for weeks. I don't buy it at all.
No. It'd have to give them a major bleed for them to be unconscious that long.
Right. Which is, I guess, the way some people think he was able to keep them in the cellar of the Pink Palace, but for weeks, I don't know. The other thing that's been believed is like Laura Amy, particularly, who ran away from home. Maybe, and there's all these stories about, like, there's a story about how Bundy used to come down here and hang out with the teenagers. And
Mhm.
Marion Beveridge, Laura Amy, let me see if we can find Laura Amy's picture or both their picture. I think they have a picture of them together. She said that one day he came down there. Here we go. He came down there. Bundy came down there, started hanging out at Moe's Cafe, Mole's Cafe. They call it Mole or Mole Brown's because the guy whose name was Brown had a big mole on his face, and he was just known as Mole Brown. It was actually the Naughty Pine Cafe, and that Bundy walked up to her and like started walked up to Laura, who was wearing a halter top, and just started stuffing like grass clippings and stuff down her halter top, down her shirt. And this other boy that she apparently had been sleeping with and was her boyfriend, walks up to him and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing? That's my girl." And Bundy backed down because Bundy, when it came to violence with men, Bundy would back down. He had no interest in violence with men. He was terrified that he was going to get his ass kicked. But this is a picture. The girl, if I'm not mistaken, the girl in the halter top here on the, they're all holding jungle juice. They're all holding like prison hooch, juice that they had. This is gin and juice right here. This is street drinking Jack Mormon kids. This girl, I believe, on her knees is Laura Amy, and then Marin is the girl behind her in the center, I believe. It's so hard to tell from out of focus. But basically, here in Utah County, which is all, I'll try not to scare you. Keep it on. This whole county, which is now all Tesla Cybertrucks and shit these days, and like houses that go for $1 million, $2 million for like a 4-bedroom house. This was all hit country, right? This is where the shit kickers were. This is and kids from this area, they were hard, they were Mormons, but for the most part, but they were Jack Mormons. And so it does make sense that Bundy would come down. And according to Marion Beveridge, he'd come down here because he'd hang out. Laura, he would make advances at Laura, and she would tell him no. And she said, quote, that Laura had told him, "No, dude, fuck off," and pushed him off of her more than once. And then, but he apparently, according to her friends, he knew that he could get that, if she got drunk enough, he could probably, lure her away. And so who knows? Again, this is like all this stuff that we'll never find out more about because all the evidence related to this case got thrown away. Maybe, allegedly. So yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of weird stuff here. I'm going to try and see if I can find the police report about the pickup truck.
So the police report, like any reports, can be public, right?
So the one that I there's like different rules in Utah. They had a rule that you had to publish everything that they had after so many years.
Right.
But if it didn't get published, basically they also had for a while they had like a 20-year rule that said that basically said every 20 years you just purge all of your stuff, just throw it away. This is one of the curious things you may find interesting. This is a clipping from the news article about Dr. Moore. Dr. Moore is the medical examiner who examined Laura Amy's body.
Did you already
Just-
put it on here? I don't see it.
Yeah, way down on the edge there it says Laura Ann Amy.
Because I still have the other pictures.
Let me delete some of this.
Yeah. Okay, I see it now.
Okay, the medical examiner, Dr. Serge Moore is the guy's name, said Miss Amy had apparently been dead about a week. Kornberg, remember, that's after she was found on Thanksgiving by the two hikers in the American Fort Canyon. Kornberg, who was the detective, this guy's been a detective all of like 6 months. My buddy Chris, he got Kornberg, this guy, Detective Kornberg, to invite him into his house down in Provo. And he said, and he sat down, they had drinks, they sat down with some like cocoa or whatever with him and his wife. And Kornberg, he said, told him, or no, I think it's like in the recording. I have the recording here somewhere. That Kornberg told him, I feel really bad about that poor Laura Amy girl, because I really do feel like, we weren't prepared. We didn't know what we were doing. And he's like, I had scored the highest on the detective exam. So I got made a detective and told to put together a homicide department. But the truth is, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And then he later went on to teach collecting evidence. He said, but that largely was because of how badly we had handled Laura Amy's investigation. So Kornberg said investigation was underway to determine when she was last seen. He said he was not certain whether the girl had been reported missing, although there had been missing person reports filed on her on previous occasions, blah, blah, blah. The interesting thing here is Dr. Moore, Serge Moore. Dr. Serge Moore was Mexican. His real name was Sergio. And his last name, I believe, was Morales.
Okay.
And
did he just shorten it?
Yeah, he shortened it to sound more American. He had worked apparently in a coroner's office in the Pacific Northwest. I want to say in Washington or Oregon. And then he got transferred. He got a job as in the medical examiner's office here in Utah and became the medical examiner. One of the interesting things about this guy who insisted for the rest of his life that this girl had been dead less than a week. And this same guy, when he was eventually fired, when it was discovered that so many of the coroner's reports, the medical examiner reports for the whole state of Utah, basically, that came up with basically plagiarized material from earlier medical examiner's reports. And that's when somebody finally thought to look into this guy's credentials. His claim was that he had gone to medical school in Mexico City and become a doctor in Mexico City, then moved to the States, volunteered, went and joined the army, went to serve like in a MASH unit in Korea, I think, and then came back and got a job at the hospital in the Pacific Northwest, and that's how he eventually gets to be the medical examiner in Utah. Come to find out, he didn't serve in a medical unit in the military, and he didn't. There's no record of his having graduated medical school in Mexico City or anywhere else. And so the story goes that it's quite probable he was eventually let go because so many criminal investigations were botched when he just couldn't validate the information like this. How long had Laura Amy been dead? So it's interesting. Again, maybe he's right, and she looked like she had only been dead a week, but like maybe Chris and I are right in our supposition that she may have been. And oh, by the way, Kornberg apparently agrees with this. he said, he apparently told Chris, growing up on the farm, if you had a cow that or cattle that died out in the field while the snow was falling, if the snow covered them, it would preserve them like a little morgue,
Yeah,
and they
it
would,
will.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
I've
so,
heard, I've heard of a case. Actually, this was by one of my EMT instructors. Before it used to be called, have you ever heard of dependent lividity? How the blood kind of flows down. Okay, lividity is like when the body lays there for a while, the blood
uh-huh.
kind of tends to pool down to where in the direction that they're laying, and
Okay.
that used to be one of the times that you could actually declare them dead if you saw lividity. But it turned out that they took that out away from paramedics to use dependent lividity as one, because like he had a case where it was up in the cold mountains of San Diego, and he showed up, but the patient was still had a pulse, but they had lividity from laying there for so long. So yeah, the cold can preserve people a lot. And yeah, he said he ended up resuscitating that person and got them back.
Yeah, because what's the temperature that they keep morgues at to preserve remains? Isn't it? Do you know what that is?
I don't know. It might be in the 30s. I don't,
Yeah.
because it would have to be like at freezing.
Right. Temperature.
Yeah,
Yeah, 30. You're right. 36 to 39 degrees for short-term refrigeration. So it's like, so you'd have to plausibly believe that on Halloween night or between Halloween and Thanksgiving in American Fork Canyon, Utah, that canyon got down to somewhere in the low 40s, high 30s in order to preserve her like a morgue. It's 100% plausible.
Keeping On's got a pretty good question. How long does a corpse leave an odor or detectable smell? And they say it could be, I looked it up here, and AI overview tells me weeks or months, but there's factors that influence it, which could be temperature. So higher temperatures will accelerate decomposition. But humidity promotes faster decomposition, insect activity, the body condition. So it's also the health of the person and the surroundings. So it depends where you're at.
Wouldn't humidity and moisture play a part? Isn't that like a big part?
Temperature, humidity, body condition, and surroundings.
Yeah. I mean, from what I understand, I mean, I have the coroner's report, but again, the problem with the medical examiner's report by Dr. Moore is that pretty much he may not even be a doctor, frankly,
Right.
and so much. There's so many problems, but the way he described her when she was found, she was swollen, very, very swollen, and so it's like, okay, you say she was dead less than a week, but she was almost unrecognizably swollen up, her face, to where they were worried that nobody would be able to identify her, for example. And that tells me dead longer than a week. I can't say for sure, though. So I don't know. I don't have enough experience with that. But yeah, it's an interesting conundrum. I mean, but like her father, her father calls the Utah County Sheriff's Office and he says, I understand you have a brunette girl that was found up in the canyon, and I'm terrified that it might be my daughter. And she says, and they're like, how long has she been missing? He said about a month. And so at first, Mac Hawley's office, they're like, no, you can't come up and see her. And he's like, what? And they're like, this isn't a freak show, man. We don't just allow any old Tom, Dick, and Harry to come up here and look at bodies. And he's like, this is my daughter. I'm sure that's my daughter. How old is she? They're like, yeah, we think she might be a teenage. We think she's a teenager. And it's like, what do you mean you think? And they're like, well, she's so swollen up. It's hard to say. And so the way that she was able, the way he was able to identify her was that there were divots in her arm, scarring tissue in her arm from
Right.
where her horse had thrown her. She was a horsewoman. She liked to ride horses, and so he was able to identify her by the marks on her arms. I'm looking at that and I'm like, wait a minute. He couldn't identify his own daughter looking down at her face in the morgue. Like, this is like a couple days after they found her. I'm looking at that going, that's dead in a week? That doesn't sound right. I mean, that sounds to me like she's been there for a while. So I don't
Well,
know. What's
I got the stages here of appearance of swelling. So the early stages is in the first few days after death, the internal organs begin to decompose. That's why the body will all let out its fluids.
right?
Bloating typically begins about 3 to 5 days post death,
Okay.
with the abdomen swelling significantly. And they say it's gas production. That's what I was looking at. And then the bloating is often accompanied with greenish discoloration of the skin, which spreads over time. You know, foam may also leak from the mouth. And then advanced swelling within a couple of weeks. The bloating can be quite pronounced with the internal gas pressure reaching its maximum. So you're probably talking of a couple of weeks that she had been dead if he didn't recognize her.
He had removed some of the nylon stocking, the ligature from her throat. That her throat had swollen up enough that they had. I think he said he had to cut it off. Also, she had a ring on her finger that they had to cut. I believe they had to cut her finger off to get the ring off because it had swollen so much.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess it could be within a week, but I don't buy it. I buy it. I think she probably was up there for. I think Bundy probably, for at least a few weeks, at least 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It just seems so out of character for Bundy to take a victim all the way up to Salt Lake, keep her there, though there are witnesses. Or no, Bundy himself said that he took her home. That he took one victim home, but I think he was talking about Melissa Smith, and carried her up the stairs. And then when he saw that and they're like, you just carried her up the stairs to your, or that he said that he used to use the fire escape outside his window. Chris showed me. He's like, look at this fire escape. And he showed me that, and I saw it on the house, and I'm like, that's little Ted Bundy threw a teenage girl over his shoulder and climbed up that fire escape with her slung over his shoulder. He's like, bullshit. I'm like, this total bullshit. So it's like he either stashed her down in the cellar, or he killed her and left her in the canyon. I said, I don't buy that. Bundy takes her all the way up to Salt Lake just so that he can play with her, kill her up there, put her back in the car, drive her all the way down here to American Fork, and stash her in the very canyon, in the very town where she was picked up. No, it doesn't fit Bundy at all. It doesn't make sense. So anyway, little things you get obsessed about when you go down this rabbit hole. I just want justice for Laura Amy. I just feel so bad every time I think about her. And it's like, this girl, she didn't deserve this. This is it's not just an unfitting end, but the fact that because of the miscarriage of justice by the police, Bundy basically got away with it. And it pisses me off.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing with these things. You start going, like you said, you go down a rabbit hole, and it's just like the West Mesa killings here in Albuquerque. When my friend and I she started going down the rabbit hole and started finding that there's probably witnesses still out there. And I'm like, well, I said, let's go try to find them. I'm like, let's go try to interview them. I'm like, they might be among the homeless here,
Yeah.
unsheltered. I'm like, this would add to our stream. I'm like, I think she was afraid to do it. I'm like, I'm like, no. I'm like, this is what you want. This will get you views.
Yeah. Well, it sure will at that. I've done a few episodes about Ted Bundy. Like I've been on Beth Magnetic's channel, Mormon True Crime. I've talked about this on Latter Daily Digest, I think. I've been on a few places talking about this. Some of the more interesting things, though, when it comes to the Bundy case. What was I just thinking about that? While you were talking about that. Shoot. You get like a good thought, and then then it runs away.
We were talking going down rabbit hole.
Yeah. Oh, interviewing locals. Yeah. So I text messaged a guy who now teaches forensics, and who teaches criminology at a university now, who was the guy that that the local county attorney had gotten to go out, and Brent Bullock had gotten to go out and interview all the people. When I go out for my evening walk, I walk past this store that's going out of business right now. And it's the local outfitter store. And right next to it, right on the other side of this street right here by my house, is a Jack and Jill Lanes. And I was talking to him, and I was like, it's so interesting that there were stories this guy found of people saying that Laura Amy showed up at the Jack and Jill Lanes, which is right here next to my house. Like I walked past it, and he goes, that's because you're thinking. He's like, no. That Jack and Jill Lanes was built in like the 90s or something. He's like, the Jack and Jill Lanes is this weird little outdoor shop that's like that's right around the corner. And I said, what? He's like, yeah, that was the bowling alley. I'm like, when I started Hellfire Agency, I had a night job just to earn a little extra dough at the gas station right next door to that building. And he's like, oh my gosh, I stop in there for gas every time I'm there. I'm like, that little gas station. When I started this investigation, I was right next door to one of the places that is rumored to have been the last place that she was seen alive. Now, mostly it was the library, the park in front of the library that is believed to be, that's consistently believed to be the last place she was seen alive, Laura Amy. But the interesting story part of that for me was he interviewed Laura Amy's sister. Her younger sister, I'm trying to remember her name. She had gone with Laura Amy, who had a car. She had a pickup. No, she had a little car, and she was supposed to drive home to their house. They had a ranch down south, down in Carbide County, I want to say. And she and this woman reminisced to Chris. She said, Laura, we drove down, and Laura was listening to the radio. We were listening to the radio, and the song came on by What's His Bucket. Well, anyways, the song is Seasons in the Sun. Right. We had joy, we had fun, we had seasons in the sun. And you listen to that, it's very reminiscent of the stories of Laura Amy's relationship with her father. Remember the guy who called, who had to come out and identify her. And including talk about drinking and stuff like that. And she got very choked up and emotional. And she had said to her sister, when I die, I want them to play this song at my wedding, at my funeral. And this was a year before she died. And the sister says, I told her, I said, that's silly. you're gonna have them play a rock music song when you're an old lady. You're gonna be an old lady lying in your casket. And she's like, I don't care. I want them to play this at my funeral. So her father identifies her. They get her remains. They go to bury her, and he goes in and talks to the bishop about the memorial service because they're LDS, they're Jack Mormons, but they're Mormons. And he goes to the bishop and he's like, we need to like arrange to put, I don't know, like a hi-fi or something in the chapel so that we can play, because Laura told her sister before the story, and the bishop wouldn't let him do it. And he's like, you're not going to play rock and roll songs inside the chapel, not in an LDS chapel, no way. And she says that is the thing that finally broke her father with the church. That after that, he was deconstructed. He was like, they wouldn't even let me play a beautiful rock song to commemorate my daughter's death in the most vulnerable moment of our lives. They had to raise a fuss about we don't play rock and roll music in the chapel. And that apparently
shelf breaker right there.
Anyways, I probably overloaded you all with way more Bundy. It turns out I do remember some Ted Bundy stuff after taking basically a year off.
No, that's cool. I mean, I think my subs are getting a good view of what your channel's part of your channel is about. I remember you talked about it, and that with, like I said, having started the other channel, and I'd rather find those rabbit holes to start going down. Maybe we'll have to look for the truck.
Yeah, that there's so much still to do. I tell you, the other one is somebody's got to get Rhonda Stapley. Rhonda Stapley is the woman who claims that for basically 40 years she has sat on the secret that Bundy picked her up at the U of U campus and took her out into the forest and had his way with her, strangled her out, had his way with her, and didn't that she had woken up, that she had come back around while he was getting tools out of the back of the car, and that she says that she got away. She bolted for it. And Bundy did apparently say to his investigator in Wyoming, I think, that he said, there were ones who got away, more than once. I came back to the car and a girl I thought was dead was gone. And and when she gets asked, why didn't you say anything? You sat through this guy's trial and all this. He raped you, choked you out, and for 40 years you didn't say I was one of them. You didn't think to come forward. And she said, she basically quoted The Miracle of Forgiveness, Spencer W. Kimball. And she said, in the Mormon faith, if you lose your life, if you don't lose your life defending your virtue as a woman, you are a sinner. You're an adulterer. And she said, I didn't want to be labeled. I didn't want to be accused of being a slut.
That's a horrible book. Yeah. I got given it, and I remember reading some of it, but I don't think I got through the whole thing.
That part is in one of the worst chapters. I have it here somewhere. I have it literally thrown on the floor here somewhere.
Mine's in storage. No, mine's in my pod.
Yeah. I had it marked here somewhere. Don't look at my messy office. Okay. Yeah, luckily no messages yet. I think I have it marked here, or this might be a different one. But yeah, that line was in this book all the way to the end. of publication of this book. And they did finally. My understanding is that they have
They've done away with.
stopped. Yeah, that they stopped printing it. They stopped selling it years ago at churches, bookstores. But yeah, I don't have it here highlighted or anything. But yeah, I mean, basically, he blames the victims unless you die. And
Mhm.
that's the reason why this woman for 40 years kept it secret that she was assaulted by Ted Bundy and he who tried to murder her.
Yeah,
But now
wouldn't the church
she,
ask her, what did you do to deserve this?
right? What were you wearing? You
Yeah,
know, you hear these stories all the time. I mean, that probably sounds, like guessing. We literally hear these stories all the time. People will, you ask, just about any woman, especially in the church, what do you recall about being asked about your sexual history or about assault? And almost every one of them I find has a story to tell of some priesthood leader really grilling them on deep, intimate details, almost with a sick, fixation with the story of it. And it's disgusting. And it's just, and it's none of their business. And they will get really invasive. And it's like, and all of that to shame them for being sexually active, even if it was with no regard to consent. And so it's like, it's disturbing. So, yeah.
yeah, right there. Look at Gage's comment.
I see that. Thank you, Gage. I love that. I mean, it is disturbing. You look at the comparisons of Ted Bundy and Joseph Smith. No Mormon's gonna want to do it, but the fact of the matter is,
They're
there's a
very alike.
lot there. There's a
Mhm.
lot there, and I mean, even Larry Anderson, the missionary. I wish I had it queued up to show you his interview. He's talked about this for years. He's given news interviews with television networks, and he said Ted Bundy was what we called a golden contact. He said first time we met him because the first missionaries to knock on his door apparently were two sister missionaries
Oh,
who yeah, you're talking 21-year-old Mormon girls, and they knock on his door and they ask him if he's wants to hear a message, and he's like, absolutely, come right in. And they're like, whoa, do you have a wife or somebody here? Just like the movie. It's just like the movie Heretic, right?
you
It's
were you
just
were
like
reading
it,
my mind. I was about to say
right?
it's like heretic.
Yeah, it was so much like Heretic. It's shocking. And they're like, we can't go in if your wife isn't here. He's like, well, I don't have a family. I live here by myself. And they're like, not a problem. You will send a couple of missionaries. Well, they didn't have any elders in the area, any boys, young men serving in that area. So the branch president appointed two returned missionaries, two guys who had gone on missions, and said, you are now
Right.
stake missionaries so that you can go convert this guy who just moved into the avenues. And so he basically called these two returned missionaries, Larry Anderson and John Green, to be Ted Bundy's missionaries to convert him to the church. Right? I mean, can you imagine? John Green is a lot more weirded out by this story. Larry loves to tell people, like, "Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, he's kind of a jovial character, though. He overshares a lot, which is great for us. But the thing that's interesting about that, what was I going with that? Is that oh yeah, Larry said when I first met him, he said, I love the Book of Mormon. I love Joseph Smith and know all about Joseph Smith, which likely was true because he went on long camping trips with his future father-in-law. He's
Mhm.
dating women. He would like date women, then of course he would murder women. And all of this while supposedly, according to his fiance, they're engaged to be married. His fiance is a Jack Mormon living in Washington State. She comes from, family money. That was the thing about Bundy. If he met a girl who came from family money, he tried to get in there. He tried to get he tried, and it was like a ruse. Like being with her was really a ruse to get to her parents, and trying, and which is fascinating. Part of it could be Bundy was searching all his life for a father figure, or he was
Mhm.
looking for family with money, so
Money.
he never have to work or whatever. But he always had this ulterior motive.
Not far from a Tim Ballard.
Gosh, talk about yeah, talk about hucksters. I mean, Tim Ballard and Joseph Smith. And you can hear it in the way that he praises him.
Mhm.
It's just like how Bundy used to talk about Joseph Smith. Apparently, you can hear it in the way Ballard does it. Now it's an ex-Mormon. He's been excommunicated. It's weird, man. I don't trust any ex-Mormons who love Joseph Smith. Just kidding. I'm just teasing.
Did you watch the Inconvenient Faith thing?
I turned it off.
Speaking
Some
of,
of those guys just piss me off.
and I know we're going on a tangent here, but it just seemed like a lot of, like you had some good ones that were X, and then you had all these apologetics. It seemed like to me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I watched it through because I guess that's what's going to be on Tuesdays with Tim this week. So I definitely want to jump on with that. And I took notes, but then I'm like, there's too many things that I found in there.
Yeah. I remember John Dillon's interviews being really good.
Yeah. But he's always good with it. I mean,
yeah.
It's like, and then having Jeremy Reynolds was good there.
Yep. Julie Hanks was really good. What? No, wait, no.
Mm-hmm.
Was it? No, it wasn't Julie Hanks. Was it Julie? Did they have Julie Hanks on that one? I'm thinking.
No,
You know what I'm thinking of? You know what I'm thinking of? The one I have been watching. Where is this? Is it? I think it's on HBO Max. Is the Jody Ruby story about Jody Hildebrandt and Frank and
that's the one that were the three other producers that were outside the church that weren't even church members produced. In fact,
is that one?
Yeah, I think that is. Yeah, because John DeLynn just interviewed them.
I have to go check that out.
Yeah.
It was so far. It's really fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like I know a lot about that story, and I'm learning stuff. I'm like, are you kidding me? That
might be another whole stream right there.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because I watched the one that they had on Hulu.
Right.
That documentary, but there's also a made-for-TV movie in there too, which didn't do it justice.
I don't remember if I watched that documentary on Hulu. I remember, but I think it's hidden true crimes coverage of the story, and or I don't remember where I remember it is. I remember the suspicion. I haven't gotten to there in the documentary, and I don't remember enough about it. I just remember seeing all these posts online flying around about that Kevin Franke is like the most the most nefarious character in this story, and I don't remember exactly why. But I'm looking forward to diving back into it, even though
he is. I mean, from a lot of the stuff that I saw, just the way he went and looked at her notes. I'm like, dude, why were you all digging in her closet for that? I'm like, where you rank on her scale?
Right.
Joe did grow up in the church.
Oh, I did. Oh, sorry. I saw that comment too. Yeah. But yes, I did grow up in church. I was excommunicated at 33. Yeah, 33.
Show him the letter.
I got it right here. Boom, boom, boom. Again, don't look at my messy office. 14th of August, 2013. So I guess that was 9 days before my birthday. And yeah, I love this letter. Oh my gosh, I got it dirty. But yeah, I keep it now. Now I don't even put it on the wall. I just keep it next to my desk so I can check it.
Oh.
I love it.
You know, and I keep getting the elders come by my apartment, and one day I had my dog out there, and he just kept barking at them. They didn't even get close. He was just barking, you know.
I gotta get you to get you to send me a trained dog.
Yeah, he's doubting them. His name is Thomas. So
this is the Dalmatian.
Yeah, he's a Dalmatian mix. He's deaf though. That's why he doesn't wake up right now while we talk.
Ah,
you know. So he knows. It's got 4 signs now. He came with 2. Now I've got him on 4 different ones. So he that's how I communicate with him. Of all people that inspired me to get this dog, I got hooked, and then I don't know if you know them personally, is was what Matt Wetzel of Matt's Off-Road Recovery. Oh. They're out in Hurricane, Utah.
Oh, and, okay.
I don't know how I came about their channel, but basically they're a tow truck company for people that go off-roading. And, you know, I guess Utah's full of trails, but they have specialized vehicles for it. And they have a dog that's a border collie, and they just they'll have it in the back of the vehicle and they let it loose and it just runs around. And I'm like, man, I want a dog. So then I found this guy. So yeah. And
he's a rescue.
He's a rescue. Yeah. 5 years old. I found him. I looked at him. I'm like, he's a Dalmatian. I'm like, this is number 5 as far as Dalmatians I've had. So I'm like, I understand these dogs. So, and this is my first deaf one though. So I'm like, I'll just, learn to communicate with him.
I love it.
Yours all and adorable. Man, I think my fan base is big based on with him.
On Thomas.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's mostly the Xterra.
And the Xterra did get me several, I did a short on it the other day, and within half hour I had 1,200 views on a short about it.
I've been looking at going into van life. I'm doing a mission for the Church of Korihor in October, excuse me. And I've been looking for a van or truck that I could just use temporarily just to get to get cross country, and something though that I can sleep in, so I don't have to spend a bunch of money on hotels and stuff. And and I came across, I was looking at SUVs for sale in the area and for the price range I can afford. And one of them was this Nissan Xterra, and I'm like, oh, I gotta get that one. And Jules can help me retrofit it so I can live.
Well, you know what you can do with those? You can there's how it has its own roof rack on it already. Right. There's an activity called overlanding, and that's what I'm building mine for. And it's to go off-roading, but more rather than what they do in Utah, and they're going up all these big obstacles. This is more of a trail ride, and then you go in, you camp out for the night, and drive back out. So what they do sell these specialized tents that you put on the roof rack. Right. They fold out like this.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a guy with a Subaru, just a little Subaru wagon here, and they have one.
That's great.
Yeah. because all
That's
Subarus are
great.
made all-wheel drive. You know, that's
Yeah,
a Subaru
those are
thing.
off-roading vehicles. Yeah,
They're
yeah.
off-roading vehicles. Another you can find an inexpensive one. I would suggest like just get you an old U-Haul van, or if you could find the. I know it's not going to come expensive. Inexpensive would be one of the Sprinter
Yeah, yeah.
ones that are, or even the Dodge or the Ford Transit,
Right. So
because
I've been looking at.
those are tall.
I've been looking at Ford Transits. I mean, yeah, and that I mean they are pricey, not quite as pricey as a Mercedes Sprinter.
Hmm.
Well, I guess that's not just Mercedes; there are other Sprinters apparently too. But the Dodge ProMaster, I'm like, Dodge Rams scare me.
No,
But I don't know. I don't know if you know of any better. I mean, are the ProMasters better, or are they just basically the same?
no. At first, Dodge started off with the Sprinter, and then they made their own. But right now,
Ah.
you got to think Dodge is actually owned by Fiat.
Oh.
Yeah, it's called Stellantis, but it's actually Fiat. So
Hmm.
that's why their craftsmanship went down. I mean, I wouldn't buy a
Okay.
Jeep. I wouldn't buy a Jeep today. Those things
Yeah,
fall apart. I've seen them break in half.
that's right.
So
Yeah, I don't know. I've always had a bias against Dodge Rams, and that may just be that I grew up in Arizona around a bunch of Ford and Chevy people, but
yeah,
I mean, so
yeah.
maybe that's the thing. But
But the
my
sprint,
understanding was always the Dodge Ram is going to break on you, and the repairs are going to total it, and that's always been the
now the
downside.
Sprinter van is actually like when I really did my capstone on my bachelor's degree on ambulance types, and I found out that the Sprinter van is it's like your wall here. It has a like a stud every so many feet and has two layers of steel.
Right,
So you're getting a solid vehicle. And
right.
the, one of the chiefs at the EMS uh, place told me, "Oh yeah, those things will roll and they won't take any damage."
Hmm. I, I've been looking at since I started looking at van life and just like looking on Facebook Marketplace and stuff like
Hmm.
that. The listings that keep coming up are old um, ambulances. Ambulances, people refit those as van life
Oh
houses all the
yeah,
time.
they're easy. But I would get more of a box type,
Mhm.
not the van, because you're that's
Oh.
what's called a type two. See, I know all this. You have a pickup. You have a pickup front end and a box. That's a type one. A, a van that's taller. It's a type two, and a type three is the van front end with the box. And the type two are worthless because what they used to do is get those Ford vans, the Econoline van. They would
Right,
cut the roof off of it.
right.
So now you're cutting the structural integrity of that vehicle off and then mold
Okay.
fiberglass onto it.
That's right.
And so,
But isn't that like what most box trucks of like the U-Haul variety were too? I mean, they just
oh,
eat
I would go
three
on
fifty.
YouTube and look up like van life, or you look up U-Haul living. Like people will buy the old U-Hauls and then
Yeah.
they open it up and it's got a little kitchenette, generator, everything to you know, and you.
That's what I really want to do is
Mhm.
get a box truck and convert it. And just like then you have exactly what you want. None of
Mhm.
the crap. I'm like, I don't need a dining room table. I mean, it's van life. Get outside. What are you doing? Right?
Or you can put one like attach one to the door that folds up and then you fold it down. There's stuff like that. You just gotta like find a channel on YouTube that says van life or something, and you'll find it. It's the same thing as what I want to do to my Xterra. It's called overlanding. Same thing. People retrofit their SUVs.
Cool.
And right now, the Xterra is a popular one because they're inexpensive right now.
Ah, and Nissans are good cars. I mean, that's always been my experience with them. I've always been a Japanese car person, so
Right now, not the sedans. The trucks are.
okay,
Mm-hmm.
really.
Yeah.
Oh, that's disappointing. Well, that's interesting because I have had a lot more trouble now. Now that I've been buying newer Hondas, some of
Mm-hmm.
the newer Hondas are really kind of crappy. And
And I
yeah,
will. I will say, if you ever want to know about the vehicle you want to purchase, look on Scotty Kilmer channel.
Scotty Kilmer. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
mechanic of 53 years, knows everything there is to know about.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Mhm.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, and that guy will tell you.
The guy
Yes,
he's one of those people. It's like everybody will try to sell you. Oh, I know. Yes, it's exactly the guy. He's that guy who will say, "Yeah, they'll charge you $300 for this, and it's this $2 part." That I
yeah,
like
he'll
that
pull
guy.
out his little computer and he's, oh, you don't have to fix this. And yeah, I'm like, yeah, and see, Gage is right here with Nissans. The what's happening with the front wheel drive sedans or even the little SUVs like the Rogue and stuff like that, which my mom has, because my family is a Nissan family.
Mhm.
Um, their transaxle, not their transmission, because when they have a front wheel drive, you have a transaxle because it's working this way. Those transmissions are made by a company called Jepco, which are a piece of trash.
Okay, I'm
And
wondering
if you,
if that's what I had. My wife's Honda
Mhm,
HR-V. The transmission went out on it twice in the same year.
mhm.
And we had to rebuild, and then we had to have a rebuild of the rebuild. We had to have a replacement of the rebuild. And they say, and my mechanic, I'm like, how could this have happened? And he said, ever since, he's like, Honda on like their whole line of sedans and crossovers has
Mhm.
gone to these new transmissions, and he said they are just begging to break all the time. He's like, it breaks your heart. He's like, Hondas are the most reliable cars on the road, usually with the best resale value. He's like, not anymore. Those transmissions have
Yeah,
just ruined.
Scotty always says Toyota, then Honda, but he's just a Toyota fan. I mean,
Right.
but he will give Nissan on their trucks, but that's about it. You know, their cars. Yeah, dear, my mod's going. I know more about Ted Bundy than cars.
Same here. Same here. I know stupid amount of Ted Bundy stuff, as you guys got a dose of tonight.
Uh, no, that was a good stream because I didn't know as much and I learned a lot, and
Cool.
I think we got pretty good amount of people. Like, I was looking at the analytics. I always watch them as we're
Mhm.
going, and
Mhm.
we got, like, right now we have 5 steady people in here, and then we got 8 likes, 40 views total. So
Cool.
I mean, yeah, yeah. So
I mean, we
I
could
think
do a sermon.
uh, I've sometimes when I do get we get a lot of hate on a lot of people coming to preach to us on our channel here,
Yeah,
and
I've seen. Go.
uh, I always have to just like challenge. I don't challenge them. Yadira is great, and so is Jason. They're like little ninjas in the bushes or like a little sniper that'll just like all of a sudden you see that comment gone. I'm like, and then I try to just tell them the good old hey, it's all a myth. Like Bert Hartley says, it's shared myth.
Yeah.
you know.
Right.
Yeah. So I always tell them, go to No Nonsense Spirituality. She'll tell you.
It's good. It's good advice. It's good advice. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're changing some things up at the Church of Korihor's website. That's really exciting. And I tell you though, working on the technology side of church business, I'm shocked. Actually, I'm like, man, I just kind of took for granted that like this stuff already exists out there, but it's expensive to run a church, and especially if you want to do something, really, really cool and custom that's unlike any church out there. So I just started building my own. And we've been building this meditation app for like 2 weeks, and it's finally
Right.
getting to a place where it's really good. And I'm like, damn, this is really a new age where like you can vibe code things for your website. And I'm just like, I'm having a blast with it. So
Yeah. But yeah, they're great about taking out the haters. We should probably put them as mods on Church of Core now. But if you ever started getting them there, and Jason Yadira will jump in when I go on Matter Daily Digest on Tuesdays. They go in there and because I link it. Oh, yeah, I link the live stream over to my channel too.
that's cool, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's way cool.
Yeah, it's weird. I went right after you. I think you went on. Then what? Sandra Tanner came on. Like right after Sandra Tanner,
Right.
who
This
else
week.
came on this on the screen? And then I came on there. Tim Rathbone was on there. Then I went on
Right.
there eventually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was sorry that I didn't get to stick around and hear Sandra. I like her a lot, but
Oh yeah.
I had family issues I had to deal with. So
Yeah. There's that was a really good one. Um, I thought that was a fun stream to go on and see everybody say happy 20 to John Glenn.
John Delan.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, you never saw it. It said a number that you thought Bundy did. Bundy's body count. I would say I strongly suspect that it's somewhere in the range of 50 people that Bundy murdered in the end. I think that you know I happen to be partial to believing that that it's possible the Santa Cruz murders were carried out by Bundy. They're so similar. Is it Santa Cruz or Santa Rosa? I had this long conversation with Gene, who lives out there, as you know, about that. But there are these murders that were carried out while Bundy was living in Utah, and they've sometimes been described as copycats in California. The thing that gets overlooked though is that Bundy had a girlfriend, an ex-girlfriend in California who would sometimes call him up and tease him and like try to lure him back. And she came from money, she came from wealth. And so she was, before he started shacking up with this Jack Mormon girl and trying to get her to marry him, this other family who had rejected him because he didn't come from money, he was really bitter with them, and so he is believed to plausibly have gone back to California, stalking her, or invited by her. We don't know. And I had thrown this out to Chris Munson. I said the issue is that he never seems to have disappeared for long enough during those weekends because his car would be parked there at the Pink Palace at the apartments in the avenues. I said, what doesn't but what gets forgotten about is the pickup truck. And he's like, yeah, but the pickup truck involved in those California murders is a different color and different kind. I said, yeah, but you, Chris, he's the one who turned me on to this. You want a rabbit hole to really blow your mind here. Ted Bundy had got into trouble with the police in Washington State, where he mostly grew up, where he was a teenager. And frequently got caught up in the accusation of grand theft auto. It is believed that Ted Bundy may have, one of the interesting facts about Ted Bundy that doesn't get talked about is that he may have been really good with cars, and especially he may have been really good at hot wiring old trucks. And so I'm like, you think about that, he could drive. What's the possibility that Bundy could had a pickup truck so that he could park the Beetle out where everybody could see it, and that became his alibi.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh no, Ted's been here, his car's been there the whole time, because he rented or borrowed a parking garage for his truck that was a couple blocks away. I'm
Right.
like, you think about it, he gets up early in the morning on a Saturday morning and goes and walks down to his pickup, leaves the car there, drives out to Reno, stops and parks his car somewhere, finds an old pickup to hotwire,
Mm-hmm.
hotwires a pickup, drives out to California,
Mhm.
carries out the murders, gets back, switches back into his pickup, and gets home again by Monday morning for class. I said, doable or not doable? We looked at the mileage, we looked at everything, and he's like, absolutely 100% doable. I was like, jeez, man. So it's very plausible. I mean, he may have done a lot more. I mean, basically, you wouldn't consider it, except there's one girl, Lynette Carver, and I think was that her name? There's one girl in Wyoming, and then there was at least one woman in Colorado. And it's like Bundy did this. He would travel to kill girls in other states. And that's a little bit freaky. That's a little bit freaky because it could be a lot more. So, yep.
He was sneaky for sure. I don't doubt it.
Okay. Gage is saying that maybe it was a lot less. See, that's the thing, though, is that even the girls he was known that fit his MO in Utah, particularly, he didn't give more information specifically because he probably thought that he could trade information on those women later. So he didn't want to give up too much. He would give up a little bit. If you listen to the interview that he did with the prosecutors in Florida, and even the one he did in Colorado, he would do like a couple of hours, and then or something like that, or like an hour or something, and he was very engaged, even laughing, talking, and then all of a sudden his whole tone would change, and then he would get standoffish, and he'd start complaining, "I'm feeling tired" and stuff, and then he would throw up. It was almost like a personality shift. I mean, it's either a personality shift that he would do, because all these people remember this. Ted had a habit of going dark, where he was like jovial and fun 1 minute, and then the next minute his face exhibited disgust, like he was just he smelled a fart, like he was thinking like he was just suddenly disgusted with everybody. And that was when he would start making excuses. Carol, what's that gal's, the blonde gal from the Family Home Evening, Bartholomew. Carol Bartholomew said the same thing. As soon as they took his picture, and she's like, I think he must have realized, damn it, now I've been photographed with this girl. Now I can't do it. I can't kill her. And he's like, and she said, after that moment, I remember his face turned really dark and he looked disgusted. And then he had to leave. And it's like, so on one side, is it some kind of psychological trigger, something about his brain after so many hours or whatever? Or was he just stalling for time? And that's, is because that was, at least in that interview in Florida, that was the thing. He's like, if you want to know more information, you gotta, we gotta push off another week or another week or two. And it's like, and that's when they'd come back to him and say, "No, dude, you're going in for for sentencing, or you may not be here in a week, so no, give it to us now. If you're going to give it to us, give it to us now." That's when he would get really irritated with them, because I think he obviously was playing it, trying to get another stay of execution.
Right. See, Joe, you're fitting in here because my streams, my listeners here like to keep things going on for a long time. They keep me on the stream sometimes for like 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah. That's cool though. It's interesting though. The Gage is asking about this FBI bromance guy. I wish I could remember the guy's name. The Wyoming guy, it was a similar situation though. He would give him false information, but then he would like trickle him. Because isn't that the guy? Oh, I wish I could remember his name. I want to say that's the guy that they did that series on Netflix about him, the secret, the Ted Bundy tapes, or whatever it was. But Bundy would feed him like clues, and then he'd feed him like a bunch of crap. And it was just always about stalling. It was always about entertaining, and it was always about getting in the guy's good graces and turning on the charm. But yeah, I don't know. It's a good question.
The FBI agents were Robert Ressler and John E. Douglas.
No, that doesn't sound familiar.
And Bill
Hagmaier. Bill Hagmaier. Yeah. That's the guy I'm thinking of. He was the guy. He wasn't a typical agent. He was a psychologist who they hired to do profiling.
Yeah, he says Hagmaier interviewed Ted Bundy extensively in the years leading up to Bundy's execution, and was subject of the film of the No Man of God.
Yes, No Man of God. That was the movie I mentioned. Good movie. Very interesting. From what I understand, very true to life. And they even talk that the whole thing for my story with Ted Bundy goes back to that James C. Dobson interview. Mm-hmm. That's in that movie. Basically, where Bill Hagmaier, according to the movie, I don't know how true this is, but he apparently went to the producers of this interview, this show, whatever you want to call it, that this interview that Dobson did with Ted Bundy, and he's like, "What do you think you're doing?" He thinks you're going to get him a stay of execution, and they're like, "We're not. That's not even a thought in our heads." And he's like, "He doesn't know that. He thinks you're going to get him a stay of execution. That's the whole reason this is it. You are abusing this man. You're using him to, build focus on the family's image or whatever." And he's like, but if you can't give him what he wants, a-hole that he is, tell him that, so that he's not about to go out and confuse the whole world. And they just didn't care. Basically, James Dobson, he didn't care. He had no interest in the truth. He just wanted to push his religious line, and it's disgusting. But Bill Hagmaier, he was an interesting character from what I understand. He's a coot. Well, not coot. He's a hoot. That's what I was trying. I must be getting tired.
Yeah, I think we should see if we have any more questions, you guys. We're gonna probably have to. I think it's almost time for bed.
Yeah. I mean, we're getting to be a couple of old people. If anybody's interested, if you go to Hellfire Agency in the next week, I'm going to be publishing. I'm either going to break it up into 2 interviews. I did a 4-hour interview like a year ago with my buddy Chris Mortensen, and we caught up on all the weird Bundy things that need following up on. And we spent all morning one Saturday morning. We got in the weeds about things most people don't know about Ted Bundy that are very interesting and could yet yield some fruit. So, yeah, I think.
The only question I have right now from someone is if we've ever analyzed Bill Gothard.
Is that the? Was that the Green River?
Christian minister, speaker, and writer, founder of Institute in Basir Life Principles, an independent fundamentalist Christian organization. His conservative teachings encourage Bible memorization, families, homeschooling, and aversion to debt, familial patriarchy, and the submission of wives to husbands.
What? I
Yeah.
don't even. I had no idea. Oh,
Now,
weird.
that's a new rabbit hole.
Oh man, what'd you do that to me for?
Someone just threw
I mean,
threw us a new one.
I thought I had a lot. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
In 2014, he stepped down from IBLP after 34 women accused him of sexual harassment and molestation, with some incidents allegedly occurring when the victims were minors. Oh, we're going another Joseph Smith rabbit hole.
Okay. Was this the this wasn't the Gateway Church? That was a different one, right?
I think that's another one.
Yeah, I recently learned about that one. It's like, what is it with all these people, and like, what is it with these preachers and the kids? Why is it always the kids? It's like,
Yeah.
It's just gross.
No, it's another polygamous cult, is what you're saying.
Is it polygamous? I mean, yeah.
I don't know if it sounds.
Might as well be.
Yeah.
This is Gateway Church. Ugh. Like, I started into it, and I'm like, oh, do I have the stomach for this? So
what's the other one? The one that like protests at like veterans' funeral, Westboro. Have you ever read about them?
Oh man, yes. Those guys are wild. I mean, when that guy Fred, what's the guy's name? Westboro Baptist Church. Fred. When he passed, I was like, oh, thank goodness, ding, freaking dog, Fred Phelps, and his daughter though. Phelps Roper, she's as crazy as he was, frankly. Yeah, the godhates.com folks. Yeah, he passed in 2014. Not long after that, though, I think it was. I don't know if it was after. If it was after that, right around that time. Is it Sydney Phelps Roper?
Gothard is the one that indoctrinated the family of 18.
Huh. But the that family, the Westboro Baptist Church crew, they were basically the ones that the filmmaker Kevin Smith made a movie basically about them called Red State, and they came to protest the movie at its premiere, at one of its premieres, and he like came out to like meet them. He's like, hey, I just want you guys are those people, right? And they're like, you know, you're going to hell and blah 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 blah, and you're all part of the gay agenda and da da da. Yeah. And he's like, I just came out here to ask you, would you like to come in and watch the movie? And they eventually agreed. They're like, well, okay, we'll come in and watch it. And they come in.
Okay, so I guess this is another thing that they're doing. You know how they're doing the Meet the Duggars thing on TLC. I guess now they're doing this one on this guy Gothard. Okay. I think Shalice Ansola's already got something on that one. You know, she's always on it.
She's great. Cults of Consciousness, man. Man, she's been exposing that Twin Flames. Have you seen any of that? The Twin Flames cult?
No, I haven't seen that one.
Oh my gosh, I mean, talk about weirdos, man. But there's a series about them too. Cults are interesting. People find them interesting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and it's amazing how well she's been able to take a deep dive on them, you know. And I think when you bring her back over towards, I think when yesterday or when we were doing the whole, I think that's when I jumped onto the John Dehlin thing on Gene's channel.
Yeah.
Shalise and Sola came on to it.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah, she came on there.
She's
And,
great, man.
yeah. And like, but yeah, they were talking about how well her channel's taken off after going on John's channel. And did you see about Alyssa Granville now?
No. What about Alyssa Granville?
She got a New York Times article.
Oh, yeah. No, I saw that.
Or was
Wall
it
Street Journal.
Wall Street Journal, yeah.
Yeah. And then they like scrubbed her name out of it or something. Or they scrubbed ex-Mormon content creator or something like that.
I don't know because she was wearing temple, like the outfits from, temple rituals and everything.
Yeah.
Temple clothing, stuff like that.
Yep.
So
we're having a moment again. It's the ex-Mormon next moment.
The ex-Mo. Okay. So I guess you guys, we're gonna have to call it a night right now. We're going into our sundowners time where we're just bringing up our old stuff here.
we got caught quits before we lose all inhibitions.
Those kids are babysitters, not kids.
But possibly be looking, maybe I shouldn't say this, but possibly be looking for more Tim Ballard content. I'd gotten out of it for a while, but it's just getting too heavy now.
Now, Randy was saying that, and I'm kind of interested to read it now. He read that Visions of Glory book. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. And Randy was saying that it's actually, it's an interesting read, but, obviously whoever, like Valo Daybell, when she read it, she probably had to be very weak-minded. She had to be a weak-minded fool.
Because he's saying that because it's so obviously bullshit.
Yeah, I mean,
you have to be an idiot to believe it.
Exactly.
Yeah, basically okay. Do you know much about that guy? The guy about Spencer, the guy whose story it is?
No, I haven't heard much about it.
Okay, so his claim is he was a child psychologist here at the University of Utah or Primary Children's Hospital, and he claims at the time he was working sex cases. He was working with kids who were victims,
right?
And he claims while he was working there back in the early 80s, he was drinking too much soda and he kept getting kidney infections, and so they would have him go in for an MRI. They had him go in for an MRI.
Right.
And when they put the MRI in him,
a contrast.
They're putting the contrast.
Yeah.
It was the iodine-based contrast. And they said that as the woman, the nurse, was describing to him,
I remember
the anaphylaxis. Okay, so you have heard this part.
Yeah.
I don't buy that for a second. He claims
that he died because of the anaphylaxis and came back.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that the clinic has been lying about it because he went to them and he said, I watched, my soul left my body and I watched as they called for the crash cart. We got a code blue. We got a blah, 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 blah. And he's like, and they're like, first of all, you don't even do that. That's like all Hollywood. They're like, that's not a real thing in a clinic where they're doing MRIs. They're like, that's not even a thing. And they're like, yes, if you go into anaphylaxis, we'll try to rescue you. But that's like an EpiPen, dude.
You can do Benadryl, You do the Benadryl, and then you get Solumedrol, and the other one's actually medication for your stomach nowadays, and that's your cocktail. Yeah. 'Cause
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he like remembers. I don't remember if he described it as like defibrillators or whatever and stuff like that. It's like if your heart stopped because of anaphylaxis, because you went into anaphylactic shock.
Mhm.
You're probably not coming back. You probably wouldn't be here.
Well,
But
not unless you're Lazarus. No, no. Uh,
the
which I have seen that case. We, we,
Lazarus.
we I call it I'm getting biblical here, which I shouldn't, because but actually we had and this is another one I bring up to the people that come in and talk about praising Jesus, is we had a case when I worked in ER. We worked this guy up. We did CPR for like an hour.
Oh my gosh.
And tried every drug in the book, and he went out in and out of every heart rhythm possible. And next thing you know, we called it time of death. So a couple of hours later, well, we have to call the ME to see if it's an ME case or they're already set up with a mortuary. And then so it turned out he wasn't an ME case, so then we can bag the body, and we're going to go back. One young lady was going to go start preparing the body to bag it, means we could take out the tube for intubation. And when she was taking it out, it was fogging up. The guy came back to life.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, that's freaky, man.
Yeah.
Yeesh.
Yeah. So
gross.
I'm like, why don't you worship my guy? That I actually saw. Like, he came back after 3 hours. I'm like, 3 days, 3 hours. What,
Where's the proof about Jesus? Come on, man.
I saw it happen, but I don't worship this guy. It's like,
but that guy Spencer, he claims he saw other lives. He went to other worlds, and he saw the whole afterlife, saw the end of the world, all while he was under anaphylaxis because they put iodine in his veins to figure out if he really was drinking enough soda to make his pee infected. And I don't buy it. And the doctor's like, if you'd have died, we'd have recorded that in your file. Believe me.
Oh yeah, yeah. And then there would have been a whole code sheet. There's so much paperwork when it comes to that. Actually, JDR, that tube was confirmed in proper placement, and we did, because if it wasn't in proper place, he would have had a bloated belly. So, and very bloated, because how long we worked for this guy.
Wow. Okay.
So I can see it. My friend Joe here's getting tired. You guys, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us here. Please do like and subscribe to my channel. You can like and subscribe to Joe's over at Hellfire Agency. And watch his videos, watch my videos. I will be live streaming tomorrow night at 7 p.m. So have a great night. Thank you for joining us here. And we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
See ya.